following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
This is one of the hottest show that we can ever miss any morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the situation room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Nduthai, nice meeting you. Even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again. Character is like pregnancy. You cannot hide it. You know, people hiding here and there, you know, but after 2-3 months, 5 months, now you realize, so that is why the attitude that you were showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say. You cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's critical that people pay taxes, but then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanya. Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes?
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, you know, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom? I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, you know, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now, I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today, very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that sisi ni ng'ombe za baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
Hapo.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a dear, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing police of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Patrick Lodge, Otieno Lumumba. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
CT Muga.
CT Lodge.
Muga, not Muga. He's here, and here's the day's proverb.
One man marries a woman, another man marries trouble.
Is he the same man?
Spice.
A lion cannot eat more than 2 donkeys. It will die a natural death because there is no ICU in the forest. In Kenya, it has become the situation that you cannot conduct 2 elections. In fact,
with the same IBC.
You can't.
I told you about this Indian friend of mine who was enjoying other Indians in the group. He wrote the word valve and told them, read it.
So how did he say it? I really want to know.
The valve. Kina Ednah, it's like you said, the bees and the peas. Kila kitu mkapo mkisia kisema atasema opposite.
Opposite?
Ukisema hii anasema opposite. Opposite. Wewe ukisikiliza namna hii unasikia opposite.
The Situation Room, Spice. The only way to start your day. Chilled Spice.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Aya, City, do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda.
What are we comparison? I mean, you a mouse.
What do they say?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes, my name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of God.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
I can't hear. Good morning and welcome. What's happening where you are this morning? Looking at traffic starting. Well, not really, as we're going to have a holiday through today. Most of your roads today, not anything in terms of traffic coming off of Thika Superhighway, or whether on the other side of Westlands, coming in from Waiaki Way, or on the Southern Bypass, then getting in towards the city. Nothing going on today. Let's just wait and see how that pans out this morning. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's the 10th of May. It's 11 minutes after 6 o'clock, and good morning to you. What's happening where you are today? Getting into past already a third of the month, and here we are starting Kenya's biggest conversation at this time of the morning. Hope you're well and getting into it with us today. All right, as we get to start the morning, let's talk to you about what will be happening today. Conversations that we will have at 8 a.m. we'll have a conversation looking at beyond the rhetoric and really what it is when it comes to affordable housing. And we'll be joined by the good people from Habitat for Humanity International and Habitat for Humanity in Kenya. And we'll be having that conversation and looking at what it really does mean to have affordable housing. It is a Healthy Friday, and so at 9 o'clock, taking care of your teeth. What's happening? How do we get it wrong, or how do we get it right? And what will we be doing with that? We'll start off those conversations at 7 o'clock with one about Future Generations Protocol. What's in it for Kenya and Africa? And two ladies will join us from the United Kingdom. We'll have a conversation about what it is for future generations and what those protocols demand. So we'll be talking about today. Good morning, Eric Latiff.
Good morning. How are you?
Hi, thank you.
Okay. Uko sawa? Acha mimi niko sawa.
I don't know what you're doing, but okay. Uko salama?
I think so.
Okay, good.
Hey. I think so. Na wewe je?
Niko poa.
Very good. Very good. It is that day.
When will happen?
For planting trees.
Oh, right. That's what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Planting trees and remembering those who fell to the floods.
Hivyo ndio kunaenda.
Yep.
Yeah. It's that day for planting trees, for remembering those ones. Which one comes first?
I think remembrance of those who passed due to the floods. Yeah. I think that's who's first. Then now we think about planting trees. So that never again. We can now say never again because we've planted trees and contributed towards, climate responsibility.
I see.
You get it?
I get it.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Is the live stream up? It's coming up. Iko on.
Yes.
Ednah and Sama, Iko on.
It is.
On. It's 14 minutes after 6. So shall we do like that? Okay. Wait. There you go. Okay. 14 after 6. Good morning. Welcome to Friday. This is a public holiday in the Republic of Kenya, so that we can remember those that have passed away and those that have been affected by the floods, and also a moment to plant trees. I think Weatherman has said the rain is going. And that's why it's gone for a couple of days now in Nairobi. And that's why schools are opening on Monday.
Reducing significantly, I think is the words that they've used.
Okay. Hiya, tell us about the weather then.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, 16. We'll see highs of 23. And it's 15 and clear in Nakuru, going to highs of 25 and lows of 14. 23 will be the high in a partly cloudy Nyeri at 16. And into Eldoret at 15, clear with highs of 24 and lows of 14. Mombasa this morning is cloudy at 24 with highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 30 as well in a mostly cloudy Malindi at 25. It's 21 and cloudy in Kisumu with highs of 28, while Kakamega will see highs of 28, currently partly cloudy at 18. We're looking into a partly cloudy Kampala at 21 with highs of 26, while Dar es Salaam at 25 is clear with highs of 31 and lows of 24. Johannesburg is clear at 14 with highs of 25, while Mogadishu at 26 is sunny with highs of 32. 15 is what it is in Addis Ababa with highs of 24 and lows of 13. Into a mostly cloudy Lagos at 29, we'll see highs of 34, while Kinshasa is cloudy at 25 with highs of 34. Friday afternoon, Beijing is sunny at 25 and it's partly cloudy at 12 in Paris and 13 and partly cloudy in London. It's 15 degrees and cloudy Thursday night in New York. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 23 and lows of 10.
Talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
City.
Eric.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Welcome to Friday.
Thank you. How is your Friday?
Eko sawa.
That is good to hear.
Yes, yes.
Ndu, how is your Friday?
Fine, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Ndu. Lovely chilly morning, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
Very
chilly.
nice.
Well, no, I find it. Remember, the chilliness is with reference to my personal body.
Oh.
Your personal body as opposed to your non-personal body.
Oh.
Yes, and this is not a generalization.
So your personal thermometer is
it's
reading zero.
It's not thermostating properly.
Okay. Ndu, who's online?
Everybody. Cyprian Kambuni says, good morning, folks. Tuned in from Somalia is somebody else. So George Gashoiri says, good morning, looking forward to a great show. Hamjambo or happy Friday, starting today. Nyaboke, tomorrow SDA to pray agreement for GOK and doctors to stick. Sawa?
Ate? Tomorrow?
SDA to pray for the agreement between the government and the doctors to stick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Joseph Makua says, good morning, team Situation Room. A bright, good day, indeed a tree planting day to remember those perished in floods, yes. May God comfort their families. Amen. You're tuned in from Marile in Marsabit. Chris Amoy says, good morning, beautiful people. Wishing you a lovely day ahead. Desmond Otis is tuned in and says, happy tree planting day. Ndu, it's my birthday. Where? You're saying that we should tell Ednah to send a gift. Ednah, please send a gift to Desmond.
To me, a gift.
So, we've told her she'll do like that. Happy birthday to you, Desmond. Robert Mpogo says, good morning from Mombasa. Good morning, good team. Hargeisa is good, says James Minor. Peter Kiaria is tuned in this morning. Team Yanguvu watching from Mombasa. Ndu Ekaro Ekusheo. Eric and
what does that mean?
Ekaro is good morning.
In
Yoruba.
Well, Yorubadas are different good morning before.
No, that was, she was Igbo.
That was Igbo.
Silikuwa natuangiwa Igbo wewe.
Najua kuna Igbo na kuna Yoruba umetuambia pia.
But I was not saying good morning.
What are you saying? Hello.
It's possible. I told you Abi is Yoruba. Do you remember what I said? But I didn't. Ekaro definitely is good morning.
I can't remember. So Ekaro is good morning Yoruba.
Ekaro is good morning
okay.
Yoruba. Yeah.
Sawa. And then how do you respond?
Ekushe, as in you agree, wishing me a good morning. I tell you thank you.
Okay.
Or I've accepted your greeting rather.
Okay.
Eric and Siti Shikamoni.
Marhabani.
Colin says, good morning, awesome people. You're the reason I remain sane in our insane country. Wow. Collins is listening in from Doha this morning, and my computer has frozen.
Oh, no.
Dun-dun, dun-dun.
No.
Where we go.
It's back.
It's back.
Okay.
Nihilus says, good morning, I'm tuned in. Joe Mungai says, people living in riparian land must be evicted. Nani Anakwao. Really? Hugo Muiruri, happy tree planting day to you. Hong Kong is tuned in. That's where Robinson is. He says, if a mere renovation can cost 900 million, Kwani, what's the cost of constructing a new one? What is our priority now? Flood victims, education, health, or renovation? Where? What? Leban Misiani is watching.
For renovation, remember what they say, usipoziba ufa.
Utajenga ukuta.
Utajenga ukuta.
Usipoziba ufa, utajenga ukuta.
Kabisa. Hapa ndipo umenena dada.
That is the stitch in 9 saves 9 kind of thing.
Asante sana. Nimeelewa kabisa. Alafu, Angor amesema, happy good morning beautiful people, greetings from the beautiful hills of Saboti, Trans Nzoia, Kitale. Nawapenda sana. Siku njema huonekana asubuhi. Is it? If it's going to be a good day, you see it from in the morning, Abi?
Yes.
This Kiswahili, I'm getting it.
Okoh hapo na yeye.
Mashari and Jerry says, good Friday, Spice team, watching from Portland, Oregon. CT, those rental houses you constructed using a bank loan, KRA wants 1.5%. Sawa.
Are they?
1.5%.
Those rental houses you built, KRA wants 1.5% of their money you're going to get in from it.
Well, you're saying it as though it's only me they've targeted. They've targeted everybody.
You and those all of you who have built.
Yeah, and you don't have to have borrowed the money as long as you built it.
They're going to take it.
They want 1.5.
Ralph Kilondu says, good morning, listening from Atlanta in Georgia. Nero says, good morning from Mombasa. We are wet here. Really? After the cyclone's next stop, hot and dry. That's life indeed. C'est la vie, monsieur. Georgia Koff says, good morning, my peeps. Greetings to everybody. Happy weekend from a flood-free fertilizer with a flood-free fertilizer. Can you ask them questions about what it means to demolish houses and to build new ones? For who? Tuned in from Tidot is Anthony Minor.
Okay.
Those without shambas, where are they planting their trees this morning? Leo is asking.
Kwa forest bwana.
Okay.
Maswali ya chief. Asubuhi.
Aisha Rashid is tuning this morning and said, thank God it's Friday indeed. Lusail Tukondani, good morning, Spice. Nell says, good morning, fam. Good morning, great team. Happy weekend. And Tumpande Mti. Okay, sawa. Good morning. We hope the floods are gone. Yes, we can hope. Guten Morgen, Spices. CK is tuning in from Sisibo City. Good morning, guys. I think Nyaboke should tell you what Oboke means. Then you will know the meaning of Nyaboke. Go. Oboke. What does Oboke mean? Is she telling you?
She's doing this.
She's... I don't know what are those. Excuse me.
Eating.
Eating. Oboke is eating, licking, something. Licking. Okay.
Yeah? Asali.
Oh! So bad. Nyaboke.
Honey.
Honey.
So what's the term for endearment then in case when you want to call someone honey? Nyaboke.
Hey. Now we get it.
Is it?
Okay. I'm never going to call you anything else.
Or Omwanchi. Or what does Omwanchi mean? I've heard Omwanchi. Omwanchi is my lover. His baby.
Nyaboke.
My liver?
Not liver, lover.
Oh, sorry.
Omwanchi.
But you know, okay.
Nyaboke. Omwanchi.
Let me just leave it there.
Okay.
Sawa. Now we have known. Jumbo says Hashim Sahal.
Watakusema lava ni... Sawa, tuendelee.
By the way, songs have been sung.
Hey.
Honey.
Ding.
Sugar.
Hey. Baby.
You're my sweetie.
My sugar. Sukari.
My
baby.
Mtoto.
My lover.
Mpenzi.
So honey.
Let
me hold you.
Let me love you.
Nyaboke.
Hey. We can't even greet people again. Kila mtu asubuhi. Good morning.
Everybody.
Hey.
City.
Yes, please.
Final proverb from
the country of Kenya.
Yes.
Kenya yetu ni nchi ya ajabu, Yes. I tell you, that song was so prophetic. Aye, this is the Ajabu country.
What's Ajabu? Wonders.
Yes.
Okay.
All monkeys cannot hang on the same branch.
Where do you know monkeys?
I do.
If it's the only branch.
They will hang. Have you seen possums? Okay, we said monkeys, sorry.
Have I said possum?
Possum. Oh, possum. Oh, possum.
You.
All monkeys cannot hang on the same
branch.
I didn't say many monkeys. I said all.
I said all the monkeys in the world.
Yes. Yes.
All right. 1,600 schools to remain shut.
Right.
That's on the front page of the Standard. The institutions are either submerged or heavily damaged. Did I say heavenly? Heavily damaged.
Heavily damaged.
That no learning can take place. Head teachers are also up in arms, saying they are yet to receive funds, while the minister insists they spend what they received last term. See, to look to me better last time. From here, yo. Tunakuja. Father Lord.
Yeah, well, ile pesa ilitumwa at the end of the term, so na shule zikafungwa, so ulipeleka wapi hiyo pesa? Si bado iko kwa account. Tumia hiyo.
You think? I watched the committee proceedings yesterday upon the case that's looking into the proposed impeachment of CS Mivika Linturi. Franklin, I beg your pardon. Mivika Linturi. Very interesting. The man is a lawyer. And
which man?
Is he a lawyer?
Linturi. No, he's not.
No.
Okay. No. But Dr. Thiankolu, his lead counsel, is a lawyer.
Thanks. Thanks for that.
What did you find? Interesting.
That there are some people who have mastered the art of dodging. Franklin Mivika Linturi is one of them. My God. He then says he's not a fertilizer expert. So all these many questions people are asking him.
I don't know.
I don't know. What are you talking about? Are you in charge of the agency which is under your ministry known as the NCPB? Well, it is an autonomous agency, semi-autonomous. I don't know who is the MD. I did not hire him. Do you know of the agency? I'm telling you it's an autonomous body. Hey, dodging. So he's in the headline. He's not a fertilizer expert. He appeared as a witness in his own case, where he poked holes into the ouster motion. He further stated he had no hand in the procurement of the commodities. But I got to give it to Haminwa. That man is a brilliant lawyer. You would think that he was asking questions as though he was just asking questions. But he was leading the goat.
He's just taking in gear.
Come.
Into the pen.
Come. Alafu. Ruto to Africa. Let us set up our own fertilizer game. I think that's interesting there. Why Karua is pushing for Mount Kenya meeting. See, we know.
We know.
Yeah.
I have the Nairobian. Can I tell you what's in the Nairobian?
Please do.
The front page, the big headline. Okay, no, we'll come to bang in the middle of the Nairobian. Let me start with stop. They have had an interview with George Natembeya, the governor for
Trans Nzoia
County, who's leading the what movement?
Tawe.
Very good. He says, the people give me strength to keep walking. And then there's a story here. Why Bukusu men are going white. Mzungu fever.
Where? Only now.
Man jailed for 25 years for occult and organ trafficking. Hiya. Kenya and Ethiopia to renew rivalry in Paris. This is looking ahead of for the Olympics. And then there's that flashy guy who is at Pastor Wajohi, who is accused of 600 million shillings. He says, I'm not a pastor, bwana. Me, pastor, no.
I was just in church.
Yeah, me. He says he's not a pastor, but his calling is to help build churches. Okay?
So.
And then on the other side, there's a story of Pastor Kanyari, he of 310. Apparently, he's been going live on TikTok, and he has a crush on some lady who is Okoh Maju. She's called Rish Kamunge.
Really?
Yeah. So Wish Kamunge. So Pastor says, I got divorced. I have 2 children, one in America, one locally. My wife asked for 350,000 shillings for school fees. So basically, they look at all those things. But there was a live on, and Kanyari and this woman were having a conversation.
Okay.
EACC to smoke out public servants at City Hall.
Smoke out.
Corrupt public servants.
Thanks. I was going to say, they don't want them to work anymore.
The anti-graft agency says top official in the urban planning department under probe over his unexplained wealth. Okay. So those are the... Oh, there's another one. Let me just read a headline that's inside this paper. Capital feature, page 14 and 15, with very many nice big photos. Why Luo women are facing the mountain in search of husbands.
Okay, wait.
Luo men accuse their women of being proud and disrespectful, while the women claim their rich men are prone to polygamy.
There are some who are looking white, others are looking mountain.
Bokusu are going white. Luo
mountain
are going up.
Good thing. Good.
Okay.
And men say Luo women are excellent homemakers. They do not hesitate to take charge.
Which men are these now?
In bed.
Oh, wow. Thanks for finishing the statement. Now I was going to now ask a different question. But now that you finished the sentence, that way I retrieve my question.
The question is gone? Yeah. Okay, tell us about the topic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Doesn't look like we're going to have a traffic situation today. Lots of movement, and guys are going to get where they're going without too much of a hold up here and there. So today's not going to be a traffic day. Just in case anything does pop off, you will talk to us, won't you? SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So on page 2, there are concerns as floods crisis hits Monday's reopening. A section of parents has raised concerns over the state of several schools ahead of a planned reopening schedule for Monday. While several schools are still operating as rescue camps for hundreds of families displaced by floods, others are inaccessible and marooned. In Rift Valley and Central regions, swollen rivers and cracks on roads have made the journey to some schools a potential death trap. Yesterday, the situation worsened in Kilifi County after a cholera outbreak in one school acting as a camp for internally displaced families in Magirini. And a humanitarian crisis was developing in Kisumu's Nyando area, where several schools are now shelters for displaced people. Several schools are only accessible through boat. Excuse me. It took the Standard crew more than 40 minutes to access Oseth Primary School using a boat, and the state of the institution is pathetic. All classrooms have been submerged, while desks can hardly be seen in the waters that are almost reaching the roofs at some classrooms. Similarly, Odienya and Nyamurundu primary schools are inaccessible. So that's the story of quite a number of these schools around the country. And now, because of that, we've heard from the ministry that more than 1,600 schools are not ready for learning. A crisis is looming in public schools next week when learning resumes following President William Ruto's directive on reopening. It is now emerging that hundreds of thousands of learners may not open school next Monday, as their institution facilities are still submerged in water and classrooms have been destroyed. It has been established that another issue brewing between school managers and the government following reports that no capitation money will be dispersed or sent to schools when they reopen for second term on Monday. Did I not tell you? Speaking Thursday, Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Mashogu said only 5% of schools are not ready for reopening. We have done an assessment in all our schools and over 95% are ready for reopening. The ones badly affected are less than that 5%. Excuse me. This means that with 32,878 public primary and secondary schools across the country, at least 1,649 will not reopen. He said that they include schools where toilets and other critical facilities have collapsed and may cause serious challenges in learning. Now, it went on and on and on. And so, of course, school managers, school heads are saying, okay, sawa, we're going to open. However, si utoe kakiru. He said, no. Ile tulituma last time, simtumie hiyo.
We released money.
Ish.
Yeah, but that money which was released, was it for last term or was it for the term?
It was not even for the
last year.
It was for last year.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's money.
It's money. Nini si bado iko kwa accounts mtumie.
No. The accounts had a deficit, man.
If you're in salary arrears and you have school fees opening next week and you're paid this today,
so you use it for school fees?
For arrears of last year. Will you say that this one paying school fees for last year? See, you're paying school fees.
If you had school fees arrears for last year and you pay,
you're paying school fees.
You're paying school fees, but the school will actually chalk it down as you paying for the arrears.
Yeah, there's movement.
The movement is most definitely there, but it is the statement that is being made as though they're up to date.
Let me even make you very happy.
In fact, they had even paid you
ahead of time.
Let me make you happy, because in the same statement when he was being asked about the same, not at tomorrow, he now said, we released money to schools at the beginning of first term, 25%. And at the end of the term, we released another 25%. I'm sure the latter has been put to use in some of these, has not been put to use in some of these schools. And they'll start with that.
When you're closing school, we sent money. Remember, at the end of April,
school.
Was it end of April, end of March?
29th of April is when they were supposed to go back. So it was end of March.
End of March, they sent money. And then you close schools. That's how your pesa siko kwa account.
So you can start with that one. Hata tusionge mambo ya tutatuma lini. No. We had already sent and you people had closed. There were no children in schools. What were we using the money for? Leave alone that money that we sent was not money for this year. That is not the point. Was money sent? Yes. Was it sent when children are in school? No. So you should be able to use it.
But then the
heads argued that money released at the end of first term has already been used to repay debts and overdue salaries for non-teaching staff. As in ile pesa ilingia ikafulizwa. In the absence of the monies, Johnson Nzioka, the Kenya Primary Schools Heads Association chair, forecast a dire situation as schools struggle to run operations. Capitation for second term should be in schools like yesterday. For school heads to prepare the learning institutions, we need to purchase cleaning materials, tidy the compounds that are bushy from overgrowth that happened during the holidays. Learners have to go through swollen rivers, etc., etc. But Mashogo is adamant, and he said, Pesha?
It will do my pesha.
Yes.
In all this conversation, though, so I see in that story there's also conversation about the possibility of shortening the August holiday to recover time lost in this extension due to floods.
It is 1 week they extended.
Okay. But I'm not hearing this 1,600 schools that will not reopen on Monday. So what's going to happen? The story quotes the Interior PS, Dr. Raymond Omolo, who says about 2,000 schools. But Machogu says, we want to assure the parents that their children will be safe when they get back to school. Omolo says, we have established adequate mechanisms to enable our students to continue their education smoothly. Those mechanisms are not clear. I mean, so this 1,600 schools, the learners will not report back to school on Monday. What happens?
We don't know.
Meanwhile, yesterday was a burial of the victims, of the service for the victims who died in Mai Mahiu. And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and others attended this. The state announced that those who lost their kin will receive 7 million shillings towards burial expenses. Each family that lost a relative will get between 150 and 200,000 towards burial expenses, according to the Deputy President. The memorial service that was near the scene of the incident was attended by hundreds of mourners. Gachagua said the government was seeking land where the 85 households would be resettled in line with President Ruto's directive. The government has set aside some 300 million shillings towards resettling all the victims of the Mai Mahiu tragedy, and we shall walk with them through this painful journey. He said the Government will continue to use KDF officers to rehabilitate damaged roads and water systems in the next couple of weeks. I'd like to commend local leaders for the support and the leadership they have shown during this period, and we shall continue to partner in this exercise. He expressed concern over the rise in the number of persons killed by rains pounding many parts of the country, noting that some deaths could have been avoided, and called on Kenyans to heed the government's directive to keep off riparian land. You should avoid fighting nature, as has been the case with so many people who have decided to cross flooded sections, leading to their deaths. So 300 million shillings is coming in to resettle the affected families. They are looking for a piece of land where the 85 households will be resettled.
This 300 million is for resettling people all over the country.
For these ones of Maimahiu.
And the rest of the people in their country?
Those ones have not been, I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Because the government, the deputy president is quoted here directly verbatim, saying the government has set aside 300 million towards resettling all the victims of the Maimahiu tragedy. So 300 million is for the victims of Maimahiu.
And the other places?
Which other places?
Tana River.
Tana River, when the water goes, they'll come, they'll leave. When the water goes,
Nyando,
they go back to their homes.
Budalangi.
When the water goes, you go back to your house. You don't need to be resettled.
You know, when government effort is made, should be lauded for what it is. But when the effort simply seems to shed a light on the unequal manner in which the government sometimes functions, then that is not something to be lauded. That is something to be questioned.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There needs to be a proper budget for everybody who's been affected. So there are those that will need to move to new areas, okay? Like the people who are moving out of the slum areas which are near the rivers, the homes that are being demolished. There are those who, it's their homes that got flooded. And maybe their houses were swept away, but their land is still there, but they don't have. They need to rebuild. They need to rebuild their houses. They need to buy everything afresh. So what about those ones?
Yeah.
Okay. There are those who will have to move because the area is no longer inhabitable. Habitable.
It's no longer habitable.
Yeah, like that.
Indeed. And also remember, the suffering is suffering. If what happened in Maimahiu is enormous suffering, what is happening in the slums, most we are focusing on Nairobi, so let's talk about Nairobi.
Yeah.
It's equally terrible. People have lost everything they had, literally. So it's not that as though they do not need help. They do. They do.
How do you spell the word assess?
ASSESS.
There's the two double S's.
Yes.
So when it's one single S, you pronounce it differently.
No.
There's no word with a single. There's no word like assess with a single S.
Huh?
There's no word like assess with a single S.
The other word you're looking for is the one which has an ACCESS. That one is access.
There's asses.
Okay, sir, fine.
There's a headline here on page 4 of the Standard. State officials asses, schools ahead of Monday reopening.
Oh, well, in this article, there's a word like assess. If it was actually spelled correctly, it would be assess. My goodness. Okay. You're on a long thing this morning. Okay. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
Do you remember the song? But she called me on the counter.
It wasn't me.
And the words that I told her.
It wasn't me.
I even had her in the shower.
It wasn't me.
Now, there's a guy in Kenya who's also singing that song. His name is...
Franklin.
Mithika Linturi. He said, fake fertilizer.
It wasn't me.
Gave them to buy the fake fertilizer.
It wasn't me.
Hire the people at NCPB.
It wasn't me.
Hey, Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi yesterday said he had no skills to test fertilizer supplied to farmers to ascertain whether it was fake or genuine. While responding to accusations of violating consumer rights by not ensuring the manufacture and distribution of good quality goods, the CS argued that this was not part of his duty. How can you ask me something that is not in my job description, for goodness sake? I'm not even the one who should be here to be answering those questions. Is testing goods to ensure that they are the right quality part of your duty as Cabinet Secretary? As a matter of fact, do you even know the qualifications to allow you know that this is fake fertilizer or that it is quality fertilizer? This was Muzomi Thionkulu in his examination in chief. Linturi said, no. It is not part of my duty.
Actually,
no, I do not possess such skills. So why are you even asking me?
They've walked into murky waters here. You cannot say that you have the absolute oversight over a ministry and then you're suddenly saying you don't know.
That is exactly that. Remember I told you that it's like a goat that was being led with crumbs.
Yes.
I mean, what do the goats eat? Leaves into the pen. They led him properly. So essentially you are telling us that part of the things that you're supposed to be able to do or oversight as a CS, you actually do not. That's where they were leading him to. And he unfortunately walked right into that.
So are we saying his lawyer was leading him towards the Nini? Or was his lawyer trying to create a story? Because these questions, if you look at them, is testing goods to ensure that they are of the right quality part of your duty as Cabinet Secretary?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, do you even have the qualification to allow you to know that this is fake fertilizer or this is quality fertilizer? This is his lawyer.
This is his lawyer asking him that to see that actually to portray the picture that actually it's not part of my duty. But
my
you see how
job
that
is
could be used as a
up there.
But it could be used as a bullet against him on the other side.
How?
Because they will say, hold on a minute. So that means that there are things under your purview here that you actually have no idea about.
But you shouldn't have an idea about how to tell between
you should. It's the same argument.
You can't have the quality to know good fertilizer and bad fertilizer. That's officers under you.
Eric, the other day we were talking about some of the things that the president is quoted as having said, and we said, the president is informed. It is not him who goes to do this. He is informed.
Yes.
So he acts on that information.
Yes.
I'm going to use that argument and saying, is it incumbent upon him to guarantee that the information that he's getting is actually true before he actually utters it? You see, in the same way, yes, he is not a fertilizer expert. It is very true. The people who use fertilizers are also not fertilizer experts. The only thing they know is that when they're told this thing works, it has enough urea, blah, 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 and they see whatever they're growing, then they know this fertilizer works, okay? But when you deny and say, I'm not an expert, it's not the expertise he's denying. He's saying, how am I supposed to know anything about fertilizers?
My name is Conscious
What do you mean?
And I've washed my hands.
How? And I'm saying, yes, maybe you're not a fertilizer expert, but fertilizer under your purview, even if you don't know how it is made, it is under your purview.
So?
The buck stops with you, fertilizer expert or not. That's all.
So if bad fertilizer is distributed in the farms by an agency under you, by officers very lowly under you, you should know that they are distributing bad fertilizer.
It is assumed, here we're in the realm of assumption, that you would have experts who determine that fertilizer that comes into the country for distribution meets the master.
Okay.
And
when those experts fail,
it's still you. It is your ministry. It is you.
So is it personal responsibility or is it institutional responsibility?
It's office. It is you. When the ferry stops functioning, our Minister for Transport knows what a ferry looks like. I'm certain that he's never been a coxswain, so he cannot drive that ferry. Well, it's him we're going to ask. It's him. We'll ask where? Brother Kipchumba. Ferry what? Why not? It's him we will ask. He is not an expert at fixing roofs. JKI leaks. Kipchumba. Why is that roof leaking? Same story. Why is that fertilizer not fertilizing? Linturi, please tell us. It is your docket. Tell us. Yes.
So, continue with the questions.
It's you, Lou.
See the story.
So, I was wondering, where are we? Linturi, through his lawyer, argued that his duties as CS do not extend to making public procurement approvals and challenged the prosecution to adduce any evidence of him proving that he indeed approved the procurement of the fake fertilizer. He now said, I'm still waiting to be shown any approval that I made on public procurement. None has come. According to Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, Section 69, all approvals relating to any procedures in procurement shall be in writing and properly dated and filed. Have you been shown the writing through which you supposedly approve public procurement? Asked Thionkolu. To which the CS answered, no, I have not. In his advancement of the argument that Linturi had no role in the scandal, Thionkolu proceeded to invoke Section 44 of the Act, which dwells on the responsibilities of an accounting officer. Linturi submitted, I am not the accounting officer at the Ministry of Agriculture and at the NCPB. I was also never part of the evaluation committee that procured the tender. This is because in the Procurement Act, there is no role for the Cabinet Secretary. So even as they were buying, even as they were approving, according to him, the Cabinet Secretary does not sit in any of those committees.
You're not the accounting officer.
Yeah, you're not the accounting officer.
You're not the one who does the day-to-day running of the ministry.
No,
there's a principal secretary.
That is running away from your responsibility. It is your ministry. Okay? We have a minister for interior. Does he know how guns are manufactured? No. But if we suddenly find that we were supposed to have been buying certain types of ammunition, we buy something else. Do you ever hear Omolo's name being mentioned? No. It is him we talk about.
Yeah, but
we talk to.
That's what Thionkolu is arguing, that we do it wrongly.
So we should be calling the cabinet.
We should be saying the Inspector General of Police is directly responsible
Linturi is
in the
trouble.
public service.
That's his lawyer.
In the police service.
He's in trouble. That line, my friend, the lawyer is trying to tell us that we are going to change the practice that we've had in this country because of this one person.
Not the practice. Actually, this thing has been argued even by governors.
I am saying...
Remember, governors going to say, I am not the accounting officer. There's a chief officer.
That is shirking responsibility. It doesn't matter how you look at it, it is shirking responsibility. If you were not relevant, then we'd just have a PS, we'd do away with the ministers. What do you need them for, if that is the argument? Then what do you do there, apart from drawing a salary and driving with a car?
Policy direction.
So are we
Policy
saying that
direction
CSS
is we are going to have fertilizer, subsidized fertilizer to help our farmers. And that come together. So let me take this to the cabinet so the cabinet can approve and then we can allocate.
So are we saying that however it's done in terms of processes and procedure, then it's actually not the business of the CS?
Yeah, it's not.
It should be, and that's what we're saying.
No. If you think about it,
that is shirking one's duties.
So if the PS
it's like saying, you know
does
what,
not sit
I'm
in
the one who's just
procurement,
said, look, we're going to bring in fertilizer. And we're going to sign and then you guys deal with it down there. So then I don't have any responsibility to even come and check or oversight or say...
Then why you minister that minister?
If you do that, you'll start interfering. If you do that, you'll start interfering. That's against the law.
Oversight is interference, just in case you didn't know.
No. Yes, oversight is sitting back there and saying, bring me at the end, bring me. Did you follow procedure?
No.
If you're saying you follow procedure, oversight is at that point. You're just looking at procedure, not sitting there in that committee.
Eric.
Not saying, no, you should not be meeting today, meet on Wednesday.
Eric,
no.
Good argument, but whenever we talk about oversight functions of Parliament, and then we see the various committees of Parliament calling people, oversight, they call you and they ask you questions.
Yes.
Why do they call you and ask you questions?
They don't tell you what to do. They call you and ask you questions.
But you see, that's oversight.
Yes.
Telling you what to do is not
interference.
No, it is not interference. Every office has functions that are written down and known.
Yes.
So they're not telling you what to do. They're just telling you what is supposed to be expected from you, not what to do.
Exactly.
Yes.
It is just coming to oversight and make sure, have you followed procedure? Yes. Did you follow procedure? Yes. Not coming to tell you, but why did you pick this one against this one? Why don't you?
But they do ask those questions.
Why don't you award this one instead of this one?
Awarding. They even ask, how was this awarded?
See, you ask. See my point?
No, I don't actually. Sorry. Do you see that point?
No.
Me, I'm not seeing that point.
There's a responsibility that he has, and it's easy to shirk it by going through these grey lines and saying, no, there are people who are below me who should handle those things, and I'm not going to get involved ever again, amen. No! It's responsibility, it's yours. Because at the end of the day, when something does go amok, we're not going to call the person on the... We're going to call you.
You should call the person.
Then you now want to come and say, actually, you know what? Those guys, they're running the things. Mine was policy direction, and I've directed and said, bring in fertilizer.
I think the question that we should be asking the CS, and this is, I'm just throwing this out here, right? Perhaps the question we should be asking the CS is, did you call the person when this happened? When did you know? What did you do about it? Okay? In this whole process, so from the policy level, you said, we shall do fertilizer, subsidized fertilizer. And then you give directions, all right? So guys, let's do subsidized fertilizer, ensure that we get enough fertilizer, ensure that the fertilizer, there's a chain of distribution to all the way to the farmer, all right? When you hear that there is something going wrong with the distribution of the fertilizer, what did you do about it?
And that's what Haminu asked.
And that's the question now. The question is, so when you heard that there's something, what did you do about it? Did you call the person responsible? Did you call the NCPB? Did you call an expert? Did you say, what did you do
Haminu
about it?
asked him this several times.
Yes,
and
now that's a question.
Haminu asked him this over and over and over again, and he kept saying, well, I'll have you know that I'm not aware. That's what he kept saying.
Now that's a
and
question.
painted himself in a very, very, very bad light.
That to me now is because that's where the responsibility comes in. If you've heard about it, what have you done about it to correct the situation? What have you done? What changes have you made? Was it a human error? Was it deliberate error? Was it? Come and tell us. This is what happened. I found out and I dug up, I established a team to go and check, and then I stopped the distribution and I went to the farmers immediately and I corrected the situation, and up here I reported this, I took action, this is the action I took. Now that, but not asking him, did you bring fertilizer? I tell you, I don't bring fertilizer. Mr. Chairman, I don't bring fertilizer. I don't know fertilizer. Meanwhile, a crisis is looming in the health sector after the Senate Health Committee directed KEMSA not to supply drugs to counties that have over 3 billion shillings debt.
All the counties together.
The committee asked KEMSA not to supply drugs to any county that will not have come up with a clear plan of clearing the debt in the next 1 month. KEMSA acting CEO Andrew Mulwa said some counties have up to 6 months arrears. Mulwa, who was responding to a question by Nandi Senator Cherargei, said out of the 3 billion owed by counties, 2 billion has been outstanding for more than 3 months, which may cripple the agency's operations. We've engaged the Council of Governors to ensure that the counties are able to clear the debt. KEMSA is currently facing challenges that will impede its ability to fulfill its mandate. That's why we want counties to pay us. Ledama Olekina of Narok asked KEMSA to change its strategy, saying any county with more than 30 days debt should have its supplies stopped, since it's not its responsibility to accumulate huge debts that may cripple it. Joseph Nyoto of Muranga wondered how the authority manages to get more supplies with such a huge debt. Mula is saying now, by this county, some of them have not been paid me for 6 months.
So at where's it running?
Sir, I'm running out of cash. I cannot continue operating. And I'm expected to supply them with medical supplies.
That is it.
Sasa mnataka nifanye nini?
But you know, this story of counties owing KEMSA, I don't think we are about to see the end of it. No. So let the saga continue and let us wait for the outcome.
Okay. Okay. We have a minute to the top of the hour.
4 East African states joined Kenya-Uganda SGR project. The Northern Corridor neighbors have formed a strong cluster and gives them bargaining power as they seek funds for construction. This story is on page 6 of the East African. Murkomen says the cluster increases Kampala and Nairobi's bargaining power among the prospective donors. So East African community is clearly becoming East African community.
So they're all now joining the SGR project?
Yes, they are. Yes,
They've been joining?
They've been joining, but now they're really joining.
Okay.
So we'll wait and see.
Saf sana. Keep it here for more conversations. In the next hour, we talk about the future.
Youth?
Not youth.
Generation.
Yes. This is on the back of the ongoing UN Civil Society Conference that started yesterday. It's concluding today in Nairobi. Good morning. It is 7 a.m. Do you have the news, Ednah?
Spice up your life.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It wants tax. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in
Benlow nin inte yenin there ayu markati kadikta. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And he must blame it on Adam, not me. Because Adam messed up and he was told, now you fellow you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Patrick Lodge, Otieno Lumumba. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
CT Muga.
CT Lodge.
Muga, not Muga.
He is here and here's the day's proverb.
One man marries a woman, another man marries trouble.
Is he the same man?
Spice.
A lion cannot eat more than 2 donkeys. It would die a natural death because there is no ICU in the forest. In Kenya, it has become the situation that you cannot conduct 2 elections. In fact,
with the same IBC.
You can't.
I told you about this Indian friend of mine who was enjoying other Indians in the group. He wrote the word valve and told them, read it.
So how did he say it? I really want to know.
The valve. Kina Ednah, it's like you said, the bees are the peas. Kila kitu mkisia kisema atasema opposite.
Opposite?
Ukisema yeye anasema opposite. Opposite. Ukisikiliza na mimi unasikia opposite.
The Situation Room, Spice. The only way to start your day.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyan. Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes?
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Not much of that this morning. As you're coming off the Thika Superhighway, I think you're all right. Even on the Pangani underpass, that tunnel area where you usually have traffic at about this time, it's not going to happen because, again, folks are home, waiting to plant trees later and all those good things. Coming out of Westlands, nothing much happening here as well. And let's look at usual trouble spots as you're coming in from Kitisuru on Limuru Road and then on the northern bypass, then coming in through towards Kiambu Road. Nothing happening here either. You get into the CBD without a problem. Let's take a quick look at what's happening right around Jago Road, leading then towards Landis and then on towards Kamkunji at the roundabouts. There again, nothing happening, an extra movement, but you'll get where you're going real quick this morning. Let's keep an eye on things and see what happens as folks get out of bed later. We'll talk on SpiceFM, KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning and welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. Okay, so this one you don't say happy holiday because this is a public holiday to commemorate those that have lost their lives, their loved ones, their livelihood, their property in this devastating period of floods in Kenya. And also to plant trees as we also take action on what we need to do to save our planet, climate change. So whatever you're doing this morning, good morning, and how are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room. There's 6 minutes after 7 a.m. Shika Showmax as we head into a long weekend.
Indeed. What's your entertainment for this week or getting into the weekend? Africa's improved streaming platform for all your wonderful entertainment delivered in HD. CT, this is your time. Shika, hold it, take it by the horns. This bull of entertainment, don't let it go. All your series, movies. All your movies, movies. All your live football, movies.
Documentary.
All your those things. Whether it's a lion eating a gazelle or a man on a building with a sniper gun.
Everything.
Those ones, everything. Watch on Showmax. Download the app or go on to www.showmax.com for as little as 300 shillings a month, and on all your devices, phone, how many? 1, 2, tablet, 3, 4, computer, TV, wherever you want to watch. This city is actually for you. When they were doing this thing, they had you in mind.
Because of this long weekend.
I tell you.
In this cold weather.
Shika Showmax CT. And let's get on to this wonderful entertainment. Let's see what it has in store for as little as 300 shillings a month.
Indeed. A message from the Kenya Revenue Authority, and they're telling you, my friend, please, it's very, very easy for you to register onto E-TIMS. How do you do that? Just use your eCitizen account. ecitizen.kra.go.ke. That's ecitizen.kra.go.ke. It will bring you to that page where you log on to your eCitizen account. Then it'll ask you, okay, so we are sending you a one-time password, the OTP. Where would you like us to send it? To your email or to your mobile phone? And this is your registered phone number. Say email or say phone. They send you. You enter the OTP. You get into the account. You go straight up there. If you are not registered onto E-TIMS, you just say sign up. That's it. You register onto E-TIMS and it's very simple. You just put in your PIN and they say, all right, we already know you. This is you. You want to get in onto E-TIMS. This is your PIN number. Okay. So register onto E-TIMS. Now what happens is that next time you're issuing an invoice, you'll be issuing an E-TIMS invoice. And it's a simple, straightforward process as well. You can also use the USSD code to register onto E-TIMS, Electronic Tax Invoice Management System, *222# *222#. That's simple. Follow the prompts, and that's it.
Okay.
Simple, as simple as ABC. Let's talk about the Future Generations Protocol. There's a conference that's going on in Nairobi now, the UN Civil Society Conference, and we had a conversation with the co-chair earlier in the week on what they're looking forward to having. And this is ahead of another meeting that will be taking place in New York later this year in September. We're joined by two ladies in the studio. Kat Tully is a former strategy advisor to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. These are former UK Prime Ministers. And Sophie Howe is the first Future Generations Commissioner for Wales. Ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
Good Welcome morning to the hot seats of this to the idle listeners. Welcome to the hot seats of the Situation Room. Karibuni sana. Are you here for the conference? Are you here to also talk about the future generations ahead of September?
Yeah, well, we're here both because of the fantastic International Civil Society Summit that's being hosted by Nairobi here.
Yep.
4,000 people from all across the world are coming to talk about what do they want from the future. But as well, we're also here because a Senate caucus was set up last night. 9 senators have come together to set up a caucus for the future.
That's interesting. You'll tell us more about it. So, to welcome you both into the studio and to this conversation, CT will give you the day's proverb. So, CT goes to one African country every week, and then he brings us a proverb a day from that country. Your job is to listen to the proverb. You can write it down. And then you give us your own interpretation of that proverb. So, just listen to it and then tell us what's your interpretation of it. This week, CT, you've been in which country?
Well, there's a country in East Africa, the East African coast, and the name of the country begins with K. And there's some visitors who are now in the country, some of them are actually in the studio with us. Take a guess, which country do you think this is?
Ooh. Tricky. This is a logic. It's too early on a Friday. Come on, unkind
I think
CJ.
they know the country.
And a great country it is.
Thank you. The proverb, all monkeys cannot hang on the same branch.
All monkeys cannot hang on the same.
Note, I didn't say some monkeys, I said all monkeys cannot hang on the same branch.
Oh, fascinating.
Go, Sophie. Go. What's your interpretation?
Well, okay. So I'm going to talk about how I think this is maybe about sharing the whole tree then. If we've got a lot of monkeys and they can't all be on one branch, we need to be sharing the whole tree, and we need to be actually making sure that the tree is growing and healthy and going to be able to be there for the next generation of monkeys, maybe. I don't know. I think I'm going to bring it back to kind of how we think about the future, I guess, because the future needs to be kind of collaborative. There's lots of things that citizens themselves, I think, could be thinking about the future, setting their own vision for the future. Is not something that governments usually ask citizens to do. We're usually only focused on the here and now, and that's part of the whole problem of why we have climate crisis, why we're not prepared for an aging population in some countries, perhaps whilst we're not taking into account the views of younger people, which are going to be in the majority in this country, for example. So I think there's something there around everyone being part of that tree and recognising there's lots of different perspectives, lots of monkeys on different branches of the tree who've all got a set of vision for their own future.
Nice one.
I'm going to say, on top of that, I think you can't all do the same thing, right? We can't all hang at the same time. Some of us need to plant the trees. Some of us need to tend the trees. Some of us need to look after the trees. And so I think that, especially here in Kenya, where you have great global leaders that have set the example about the importance of planting trees, that's the message I really take from. How about you? What do you think, CT?
The beauty of asking someone to interpret a proverb is this: you cannot possibly be wrong.
Well, that's a good start.
Yes, because it's your interpretation. And we always marvel at how, just at the diversity of interpretation that we get, and we go and say, I hadn't thought of that. I actually hadn't looked at it in quite that way. Well, anyone who's been to a forest where there are monkeys, you will see how monkeys behave. You'll find a few monkeys on this branch, you'll find a few on the other branch, you'll find a few on the other branch. And if there are many on one branch, there'll be a good reason why. Probably that is a branch that actually has whatever it is that they wish to eat in abundance. But not all of them will be there, others will be elsewhere. Yes.
Good one. Yeah. Peter Otieno has an interpretation. All guests cannot sit on one seat.
Straight and to the point.
So let's begin with just understanding the Future Generations Protocol and this whole concept. I want to start with you, Sophie. First, you are the first Future Generations Commissioner for Wales. What does that mean?
Absolutely. And it's not surprising that you're asking, well, what is this? And I'm sure your listeners are wondering too. And that's because I was the first one in Wales, the first one in the world, actually. So my job in Wales was to make sure that the government of Wales were thinking to the long term. And when they were putting in place policies and taking decisions, that they were thinking about how those things would affect future generations. So that, of course, means our younger generations, but it also means people who are yet to be born, actually. And the reason for that is that so much of the way that we do politics and governance across the world is short term. Everything's got to be done before the next electoral cycle, before the next election. And so these big long-term issues that we're facing, climate change, demographic change, AI, automation, what will the effect of that be? What do we need to be doing in our education system now to make sure that our children, young people have the right skills for the future? Often governments are not geared up to take those long-term decisions because they only work in those short-term cycles. So what we're talking about here in Nairobi this week, and indeed across the world in the run-up to this UN Summit of the Future, is how can we get more governments thinking about the interests of future generations.
So what's your daily job then as
So the day
Future
job...
Generations Commissioner.
Yeah, the day job is things like scrutinising government policy. We had passed a law in 2015 in Wales called the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, and that sets out some long-term goals which were co-created between the government and citizens. So I'm testing whether the government are taking actions to meet those long-term goals. I'm also testing and scrutinising their policies to say, how have you considered the future? What long-term trends and scenarios have you looked at? Are you meeting the long-term objectives that you've set around climate change, for example? So I suppose it's that kind of voice of the future, quite a difficult kind of concept because, you know, I can't predict the future, but there are certain things that we can say future generations are going to need clean air to breathe, they're going to want good health, they probably want to live in connected communities and so on. So my job was to really test and scrutinise and challenge government around how their policies were doing that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How exactly do you enact laws in Wales? Do you have public participation? Are the citizens involved in the process of lawmaking?
Yeah, well, in this case, for the Future Generations Act, we held a national conversation with citizens in Wales, where we posed the question, what's the Wales you want to leave behind to your children, your grandchildren, and future generations to come? And as I said, governments don't usually have those sorts of conversations with citizens, where we ask citizens, what's important for you to leave behind? And when you do have those conversations, you get a much deeper sense of values around fairness, around lots of things around our language, our culture and heritage being passed on to the next generation, lots of things about protecting our natural resources, and they formed, the citizens, what the citizens said, formed those long-term goals in the law.
I agree with you, and I think it's a good thing you did, but my question was around just the laws that govern the welfare of the people, say, of your country. I assume you have members of parliament.
Yeah.
You have wards or the equivalent of the boroughs and the like. And I assume that whenever they want to move forward, they engage people and they talk to them and people give their views. So arguably, one could say that even when laws are enacted, people have had a say.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then I hear you to be saying that over time, some of these things change and the laws remain what they are. So now they have to be questioned and said, okay, you know, this law makes sense and it made a lot of sense. But looking into the future, let me ask the question again. I'm going to rephrase it. So are we saying that when laws are made, or the laws that we are speaking of in your part of the world, that the laws focused on the here and now and in the not too long future, as opposed to giving it the broad spectrum that you're speaking of?
Yeah, and I think that certainly has been the case, but in Wales now we have this overarching law, if you like, the Future Generations Act, which says all laws that have come after that must show how they've considered the future. And that's the difference, I guess. Whereas for most parts of the world, there's not that consideration. Nobody's saying, how is this law going to play out in 10, 15, 20 years' time?
Okay. Kat, I want to come to you. Just as Sophie, you've also advised governments on what they're doing. Strategy advisor for Tony Blair, for Gordon Brown. Did you face the same challenge of an administration that's just looking politically and looking at political survival for now? You're leading a political party and you're thinking of the next election, and so decisions are not actually long-term. And I'm asking that on the back of what we know. What we know is that there are very many countries that develop long-term plans, a 30, 40-year, 50-year plan. Are you saying that those two are disconnected? The long-term plan plus the political survival of the day?
These are great questions. I think that the interesting thing that is happening is that we have realised that there's a really important stakeholder in decisions made today, and those stakeholders are future generations. And we didn't put that much attention on them 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but now we're realising with things like emerging technology, with demographic trends, with the climate change impact that we're having, that the fact that they don't actually have an official voice in our representative democratic systems, whether it's the executive or the parliament, that actually is now creating problematic decisions, that we're kind of exporting harms into the future, and someone in the system has to represent them and give them a voice, which is effectively was Sophie's role. And what we're seeing is across the world that is an issue that people are realising is really important. So Parliament, which is obviously the space for bipartisan holding of the long term beyond the executive, you vote your government in for the next 2 to 5 years' time across the world, but then actually it's Parliament that then thinks about what is stewarding the long-term interests of the country from a debt perspective. And so a lot of governments are really beginning to think through how do you actually create committees of the future whose role is to do, well, first of all, to engage the public to say, well, what would you like to see from the future out for your children or your children's children? It's not a political issue. It's like we're all interested in this collective future, but also then to scrutinise decisions, to ask that question, if it's pensions, if it's a state budget, if it's actually regulating AI, it's about thinking about, well, what's the impact in the longer term as well as now? Which are the generations which are paying for this and which are the ones that are benefiting from it? And that's actually a really powerful question to ask, not just... And, we think the future is important because it's out there, but actually, if we don't talk about the future now, we just assume the future is like today. There's a term called like the used future or the official future, or in fact the future gets colonized because other people bring their ideas of what your future should look like to you. So what's really important is this capacity that we call strategic foresight, and in particular that parliamentarians work with their citizens in their communities, as you're saying, in their wards, in their counties, to kind of go, well, what is it that we imagine our community to look like for the future that we can all work towards? And that, I think, in a world of where, mistrust in governance, where we're finding ourselves facing quite a few challenges around the environment, around housing, around jobs, that's, I think, the kind of really optimistic conversation that we can have.
Do these conversations on a global scale take into consideration what is currently happening in countries? Because is it possible to talk about a future without taking into consideration what is happening now?
And also the past.
Right.
Yes,
and
absolutely, yes.
What I do now is going to have an impact on what happens at 7:30. What I say now is going to have a future is a minute from now, future is a day from now, future is months from now.
Yeah.
So are these conversations then taking into consideration what is happening in governments, in countries at the moment? Can Parliament talk about or legislate for what will happen in the future without considering what is currently happening?
I think you're absolutely right. And sometimes when we talk about future generations, or, we talk about the conflict between Gen Alpha, which is our younger generation now, and the boomers, who are our older generations. And I actually think that that's the wrong way of looking at it, because actually when you think about, what do we prioritise, there are things that you can do which are good for both current and future generations. If we start thinking, for example, about our education system, or how we might reset reskill people within our countries to take advantage of the new jobs that are coming through the green transition, for example. Huge possibilities there in terms of job creation. If we create good quality jobs for people, that actually means people are taken out of poverty in the here and now. It also means we're better equipped to meet the kind of challenges of the environmental targets that we've set in the future. So that's good for current generations and future generations. If we invest, for example, in improving the quality of people's homes, that's good for current generations, it's good for future generations because it means that they'll have less carbon emissions, it's good for current generations, jobs are created, and that has a long-term impact. So I think what we're trying to do is to get governments to apply that test. What are the things that we can prioritise that are not just going to be short-term for this generation, but are actually going to be good for both current generations and future generations? Sometimes that's about the choices that we make, and sometimes that's about the way in which we carry out policy, and putting that kind of current and future lens on it ultimately gets us better decisions.
Can you have a future conversation without having reached a certain level of actualization? Because if we're asking for conversations to be had across the globe in terms of what's happening in the future, we still have very many bread and butter conversations that are happening today. That have you created a conducive enough environment as government for all your people to have the basics? I'm talking about basics. Have you eaten today? Do you have some level of sustenance, and can this be sustained? Do you have access? If you want to look at what the globe tells us about SDGs, do you have the 1, 2, 3s in order? And so it seems aspirational that we can talk about the future when we have not gotten today sorted out. Not that it's not an important, but where does it fit? Where does a current situation which is trying to be handled fit in a future discussion?
That's a great question, which is basically, is it a luxury to think about the future when we've got so many challenges now in the present? Now, I would say thinking about the future is absolutely a must-have, because it isn't about doing things differently in the future it's actually about doing things differently in the present. So it means that you prioritise your budget to invest in things like education for children, ensuring that issues around food security, that making sure that AI is rolled out in a way that it doesn't compromise jobs or sustainable livelihoods in the here and the now. So it's absolutely important to do now. And to your point about the past, I think it's really interesting. Paul Saffo always says that you need to look back twice as far as looking forwards. And I think there is something powerful about understanding that, where we are today is what our grandparents left us. They put things in place, and that legacy of looking back into the past and weaving your future from what your ancestors gave you, I think is a very important point to notice, that we too have an obligation as well to be good ancestors. And that this, I think, that sense of hope and that sense of agency is a key aspect of what makes us human, part of our communities, and it's and that is not, again, a luxury. That is absolutely a must-have.
And I think, just in some of those practical examples of a country that's attempting to do this, and none of it is easy, but if we think about the kind of basics that you were talking about there, believe it or not, in the UK, one of the richest countries in the world, we've had increasing levels of child poverty. There are kids going to school hungry and so on. And so some of those policy interventions that we have put in place, free school meals, for example, now that's investment in the here and now. It's also a really long-term investment for improving the health and well-being, educational attainment, and all of these things of our kids. But the added thing around that, when we start thinking about the future, is how do we make sure that the food that we're providing in schools is connected back to sustainable farming? How do we make sure that the food that we're procuring in our schools through our contracts is not being procured to go into the profits of the mega corporates, but is actually going back into the pockets pockets of local farmers and local communities who are also going to be, supplying that food and growing that food in a more sustainable way. So when you start thinking about all those connections, that is where you get some really good policy interventions, which are good for both current generations and future generations across a much wider spectrum than perhaps the original policy started with.
It's an interesting discussion. The cyclical nature of it is what I find interesting in this sense. We talk about policies, we talk about technological advancements, and the thread that intertwines and weaves all these properties into one is the human person.
Yep.
And the environment in which this person grows, develops, is socialized, more or less determines the interaction with everything that we're saying. And that's why the education systems in the world are very key to this very discussion about the future. But also key in these education systems is understanding something fundamental, and that human beings are social creatures. See, when you talk about children going hungry in a rich country, what does it tell you about the people of that country? What does it tell you about the relationships that people have in that country, how they relate to each other?
I think that tells you that we've not prioritised some of the things that actually matter. So there's that famous quote that GDP, economic growth, if you like, measures everything in life except that which makes life worthwhile. And I think that, we're all focused, and governments are often measured by how strong is the economy and so on. But actually, in really overly focusing on that, we've lost sight of the things like human connection, like equity, like making sure that in the richest country in the world, one of the richest countries in the world, our kids aren't going hungry. So this is why we need this kind of fundamental reset, which is both around thinking to the long term as well as the short term for current generations. But actually in Wales, what we've done is gone further than that by saying we are going to focus everything we do around a set of well-being goals, not around GDP, not around economic growth, but a set of goals for well-being. One of those is actually about connected and cohesive communities. One's about equality. One's about creating the conditions where people's health can thrive.
It's an interesting discussion. I look at traditional societies that are referred to as being traditional. People who haven't lost that connectivity. And yet, you will find in many of these communities, they are thriving and striving, striving to keep up with the world that emphasizes technology, self, not community, and the advancement of self and the accumulation of wealth. But none of these things are really bad. Wealth is good to accumulate, but the point is at the expense of the very things that matter, and that is the fundamental human relationships. The countries that, you both come from the same country, really, Great Britain.
I don't know, there's a thing between English and the Welsh.
There's a thing between the English and the Irish. There's a thing between the English and the Scots. It's one country, Great Britain. Okay, why do I mention this? I mention this because if you look at the price one pays for advancement, what do we call advancement? The fundamental question is it actually worth it?
And that is the absolute key question. What is advancement? And I think, there's been this very westernized view of advancement, that it's technology, it's owning more and more things, it's consuming more and more things. And actually that has resulted in the planetary crisis that we're in. It's resulted in a breakdown of community cohesion. It's resulted in, global barometers telling us there's a massive decline in trust in institutions. That has a threat to democracy. So what I would say is actually we've got it fundamentally wrong, and we need to go back to some of the basic things, as you're describing, around human connection, around what matters. And we need some brave leadership to take us from our obsession with growth at any cost, back to some of those fundamentals.
That's a very tough one. Let's take a break. We'll come back. It's 27 minutes to 8. Kat Tully is a former strategy advisor to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, former UK Prime Ministers. Sophie Howe is a Future Generations Commissioner for Wales. First in the world, first in Wales. Okay, first in Wales, first in the world. One way or the other. They are here to talk about the Future Generations Protocol and what's in it for Kenya, what's in it for Africa. There's an ongoing conference in Nairobi, the UN Civil Society Conference. It's a build-up to something that will be happening again in September. What's it called in the September one?
Summit of the Future.
It's the Summit of the Future. That will be taking place in September, not in Nairobi, but this time in New York. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Do you have the passion, the interest to tell a story to the world in your own style? Well, we're ready to take you in and help you grow your talents in the media industry. The Standard Group, in partnership with Talanta Institute, is offering a media training and incubation program courtesy of Standard Talanta Academy, where we nurture and guide industry talents on an array of topics from writing, reporting, media law and ethics, investigative journalism and research to the Kenya Copyright Board, Kenya Film Commission and the Kenya Films and Classification Board legal frameworks. To apply to the Standard Talanta Academy for our upcoming May intake, visit www.talanta.ac.ke or call 0724 468 468. The Standard Talanta Academy.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 16. It's 16 and partly sunny in Nakuru, highs of 25. And highs of 23 in a sunny Nyeri at 17. Eldoret. Foggy this morning at 14 with highs of 24. And it's cloudy at 25 in Mombasa with highs of 30. And we'll see highs of 29. In a cloudy Malindi at 25. 21 and sunny in Kisumu this morning with highs of 28 and highs of 27. In a sunny Kakamega at 18. Kampala is partly sunny at 21, going to highs of 27 through Friday. And Dar es Salaam sunny at 25 with highs of 31 and lows of 24. Johannesburg is cloudy at 14 with highs of 25. Sunny Mogadishu at 27, going to highs of 32. And Addis Ababa is sunny at 15 with highs of 23 and lows of 12. Lagos is cloudy at 28 with highs of 34, and we'll see highs of 34 in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa at 25.
Some very nice, mature music.
They really took me back to my days, and I can just feel again and enjoy the vibes.
Spice.
I'm a big listener of SpiceFM.
You play the best music.
This is 94.4 Spice FM.
Not much of that happening this morning. Most of our roads empty because of the holidays. So what are you doing? Planting trees or, other things? Plant trees, folks. Coming off of the Uhuru Highway, getting out into the city, not much happening. Some movement at your junctions, folks going from point A to point B, but usual suspects this morning. It will be an easy drive into the city and out. Be careful though, I know what it's like. Empty streets then rises your penchant for going quicker, but please be careful. Let's see what happens as we go through the morning. Let's talk still. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Spice up your life.
All right, our conversation continues for the next 23 minutes with Kat Tully, former strategy advisor to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, and the world's first Future Generations Commissioner in Wales, Sophie Howe. Kat, as we were going to the break, you were about to respond or to add on to what Sophie was responding to CT's question. Some of these development, as we've gotten to define it, and the way we've gotten to define, development and advancement, is it really worth it?
Absolutely. When we're making decisions, are we effectively putting our future at risk? Are we doing the right things for the people in the community around us? And are the structures of government and economics around us actually supporting that decision-making process in service of our well-being, or are they undermining planetary boundaries? And I think that's the crux that the Summit of the Future is really trying to address. The Secretary General of the UN basically said in his report to the world's governments 3 years ago that the world faced a transition, a crossroads. But like here in Kenya, you did some scenarios in 1991 called Kenya at Crossroads, and I think the world is now at a crossroads. We can either go down one path, which is transition, climate, move away from a carbon-intensive economy and move towards equality, or we can continue down the pathway which is going to drive intense inequality, conflict, migration internally, displacement across the world, and real problems economically in the long term. So that is the very stark choice facing us that the Secretary General said, and he said we need a summit of the future that helps us come together to think about what are the kind of governing institutions that we need at the international level, but also at our governments, that can help us make that right choice. And there's a collective action issue, right? Because it's, as often I find, you know, people want to do the right things at our communities and our governments, and we see the signals around us. We see those dystopian futures, we watch them on TV, we know what good futures look like, but we seem to be stuck. And that is a governance question, right?
So
how do we come together and create change? And the answers are potentially institutions, participatory dialogues, and also individual people like Sophie, commissioners that can help us steer the way.
So we are at a crossroads.
We are at a crossroads.
Are we at the same crossroads, though? The global north and the global south, are we at the same crossroads? There are those that have argued that these conversations from people in the global north who are facing basically the realization of the past mistakes that have been made and that have gotten the world to this same point. And there are some in the societies who are saying, all right, we need to course correct. And of course, there are very many others in the same societies who are saying, what's wrong with all we have? Who cares about the future? Okay. And then you come to the global south, the developing world, the one that's just thinking, okay, we want to sort out our basics. And as we sort out our basics, then we'll also deal with our future. We are not at the same crossroads, in my opinion. We're at different crossroads. Yes, we are thinking about the future, but from different perspectives, from different areas and starting points. If we say that we know we are thinking about what the future should look like, and coming back to what CT is saying, so what is it? What's the value? How do we value our lives? Maybe we are at a point where in Africa we value our lives differently, and we are okay the way we are. But there's a pressure to start looking at how the West values life and pushing us towards valuing life like the West values life. And maybe we don't need to do that. Or maybe, and this is the conspiracy theory that I've heard actually being thrown around there, that these conversations are being brought to Africa by the West so that we are told, you guys, you're okay, just stay like that, you know, your future will be sorted. We don't industrialize, because if we talk about industrialization, we talk about climate change and all the things that we're going to do. We don't advance our political systems, because advancing our political systems, look at what we have done to ourselves. But then that development still remains going in the West, and we do not develop at the same pace.
So I couldn't agree more that what is necessary is a very strong African voice in this entire conversation. So the next 8 billion of the world's population, many of them will be in this continent. And if we have a summit of the future in September, it is absolutely imperative that there is a strong African perspective on what you see your futures. And we often, in my field of strategic foresight, use the word future in its plurality to reflect the fact that it's for people to determine, and this is why it's so important to have those voices at the table. So that's why the Senate Committee of the Future and their role in wanting to drive conversations both in Kenya at the county level but also regionally is such an important step forward.
Good. What, in your opinion, is a strong voice?
I think it's a voice that has been, that has the space to be heard, that has been supported to be able to engage and think about what is happening around and be able to participate deeply and truly in conversations.
Then this continent doesn't have a strong voice. We may be 1.3 billion strong in our population, but in terms of the voice that is heard, listened to, and has impact, we don't have it. So one could even argue that even as we participate physically and we speak in these conferences, it's cosmetic. We don't really count.
Siti, when you say we don't have a strong voice, are we saying that we are not speaking, or are we saying that we are not being heard?
We don't have clout.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not being heard. We're not being given space.
Now we're being accommodated, and we are being given the impression that we are being listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And even a conference like the one we have is, look, we even had a conference in your neck of the woods. It means we're taking you seriously. But
the final decision.
We are so far away from the table where these decisions are made. But the funfair is good. We have visitors.
So, can I ask the question then based on, I think it's all leading to what I was thinking in my head is that, can we really then say that we are all part of this one, hands around the campfire kind of discussion, if we are not all coming at the same level? Not that you don't speak, but that is what you're saying actually being accepted and really being made part of the decision. And I liken that to what happens with public participation here, whereby we say, okay, yes, we had public participation and there were 300 odd people who showed up representing 3 million. So then when we talk about the African voice, and I'm going to insist on it because I'm part of it, but when we talk about the African voice and we say that, come and let us all talk about your futures together, where we're coming off the back of having been told what to do and how we are going to participate and how you will spend money and how that money will be lent to you and how your people can travel from here to there. Are we really part of the conversation about the future?
So I would love to answer that question, and I'm sure that Sophie will too. I mean, what you're raising is questions of tokenism and performativeness, and I can't tell you how much I absolutely agree that has to be utterly called out, because what we want is meaningful engagement and meaningful conversations and exchange, and that requires, I think, two things. I think that requires accountability and scrutiny mechanisms. So being able to kind of say, well, the decisions that have been made, and genuinely have they reflected those different voices, but then it also requires, as we've been talking about, people who actually have those perspectives being heard. And I just wanted to kind of talk about some of the people that are having these really interesting conversations, whether it's Nsar, who is part of a community working with people in the Congo Basin, imagining what their kind of eco-activists, having stories about what their futures look like and what they want their community to look like, whether it's Yame, who's doing circular economy work in Botswana, whether it's Pasi Amayo here in Kenya, who's working on some really interesting scenarios looking across issues of energy and environment, not just in Kenya, but also in Mozambique and Angola and beyond. But then how they are then connected to people like Sean, who is a Pacific Islander, who works with tribal leaders looking at how the future of issues around gender and sustainable livelihoods, and that all interconnects in a world where they're being massively affected by climate change. So it's really important that those stories are brought out, that those people and the work that they do, and they are doing amazing work, actually come to the fore and are genuinely heard and acted on.
I actually think that, when we're talking about the future as well, Africa actually needs to have an even bigger voice than everyone else, because you are a continent that is a young majority. So 60% of the entire continent are aged 25 or below, and that is actually the reverse in the global north. So the global north have an ageing population, So when we are talking about the future, younger people, the future is African. So actually, far from having a sort of equal voice in some ways, which is what we're talking about here, and some of the challenges around that, you actually need to have a greater voice because you are the future. But again, couldn't agree more that I think some of the ways that happens at the moment is entirely unsatisfactory.
How do we break down those walls? Because it seems to have been a conversation that has been at the forefront for a very long time. And if we're talking about that, the world's population who will be young, because these are the actual issues that we speak of, isn't it? When we talk about climate, when we talk about environment, when we talk about business and innovation and technology and education, that we're saying that the folks who are going to grab the world's attention at the age at which then they're the most active are coming from this continent. But for some reason, we're not the ones who are controlling the conversation, but you're saying that we need to be. Are the ones who are currently controlling the conversation ready to let go of the reins and say, let us all truly have an equal conversation? And right now, it doesn't look like that is the case.
Well, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? And, I know how I would do it if I was in charge, which would be to make sure that you were leading those conversations, because you are the majority. You are these younger countries and the younger continent. But the political system and the multilateral system there are lots of vested interests, and we can see that at the moment through the negotiations, which sometimes don't get a lot of press and publicity. But there are country representatives who are going to the UN saying, no, we don't want a declaration for future generations, and we're not really interested in doing this. Now, play that out in their countries to say, you're telling me that you are a politician or you are representatives of government and you don't see it as a core role for you to be making decisions which are going to be in the interests of the next generation of your country. I mean, those things absolutely need to be called out, and there are just so many challenges in the system to doing that. But I think the way that you start to do that, and yesterday we were in an event with the Kenyan Senate, or a number of senators who are actually leading the way in this continent, and not just in this continent but actually the world, in terms of that futures thinking. And I think positioning Kenya as being that kind of leader in this space will also help in terms of amplifying the voice more broadly. That's not the only thing we need to do, but I think it's part of a solution.
If I can respond to you, Ndu, I think that there's a beautiful saying that we need to midwife the new, and also hospice care the old, and these moments of transition need to be done with empathy and love, but also with justice, right? And we are at a moment of this kind of big transition globally, and there are Sophie mentioned the Future Generations Declaration, and I think there are some really, in this system that we have, that we're trying to make a much more fairer, globally representative system of, where African voices are appropriately represented. There are some acupuncture points that we can push to kind of drive change, and I think the measures that are being discussed in the lead up to the Summit of the Future are exactly those kind of systemic changes that could drive behaviour change at that multilateral system level. And so the Future Generations Declaration would have all member states saying, we need to make sure that when we're making decisions that we are committing to being intergenerationally fair, that we're considering the interests of all generations in the future as well as now. Then you'd have a special envoy at the international level, whose role it would be to then scrutinise what happens to make sure that those commitments are met, and also then that member states would be coming together to drive that. So there are these potentials for change, and I really, that's the opportunity in September, is that this drives beginning of a transformation, but it will take time. And I think, as Sophie says, Senator Olakina, Senator Kamar, who was talking about such an important issue, which is, 28% of the population is under grade 8 or younger, how to use that as a superpower and ensure that community of young Kenyans can actually take an effective space at the global conversation is really important. And the the work of the Senate and the commitment to doing that, I think, is extremely important in leading the conversations across this continent and globally.
Another controversial point here. All right, so there are those who are saying that the conversation about the future has, very coincidentally come into a very nice point in time when those in Africa who right now sort of have the leverage are starting to talk about, let's relook the past and let's look at justice for what's happened in the past. But now the conversation is sort of being overshadowed by now this new conversation about, no, let's be future thinking, let's go ahead. Where's the balance between addressing the past and thinking about the future? And then those futures being clearly demarcated. There's a future as it looks like 100 years from today for the global north. And there's a future as it looked like 100 years from today for the global south. For us to get at the same future, we have to travel at different speeds.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I actually don't think that you can start those conversations about the future without looking to the past. And actually, it's useful in a negative way, in some ways, to look to the past, to look at where we've got so many things wrong. Because we failed to think to the future in the past, if that makes sense. So, we have failed, to promote equitable growth, both across the world and indeed within countries. We have failed to take the decisions that we need to take on climate because they're long-term decisions and they might not be in the interest of our specific country, and that will play out to the detriment of particularly countries in the global south, but even in countries in the global north, it will play out to the detriment of the poorest and the most vulnerable in our communities. So I do think we need to look back to the past and where we've got those decisions wrong. The point, I think, here, the point we're at is saying we recognise that we've got that wrong, and we now need to make sure that we're not only putting that right, but making sure that we're taking a long-term view from here on in, so we're not storing up more problems for the next generation.
The past casts a shadow into the present and into the future. Yeah, so if we have a fair present and future, we need to absolutely address and recognise the systemic injustices that play out around us now and in the future, and addressing intergenerational fairness and current issues of social justice together is really important. And what, in my view, although they're often put in opposition, like, we can't, for a little bit, we can't think about addressing climate change for 20 years in the future until we address poverty in the here and the now. Actually, in terms of governance, the kinds of institutions and processes and capabilities and dialogues that enable one also enable the other. So actually, those kind of bringing these new institutions in, I think, is very much a solution to both.
But again, you see, all these things are excellent, but you have to understand the contextualization of all of it. What do I mean by this? If there is an honest conversation had about the past, honest, not a manipulative conversation where one is seeking to better the other even then a lot of things are possible. Because if you look at countries that were colonized, yes, independence came about, yes. Macmillan did his thing in South Africa and all the wind of change did its thing. However, the element of forgiveness was always there because the colonizer was still welcome to stay. Now, the honest conversation is not about the colonizer staying, but the atrocities and the things which were done wrong. An honest conversation, and often what it requires is an honest apology. Now, there are countries who have been brave enough to do it. They've actually said, we were wrong, we are sorry. Now, the argument some uses, if you actually utter certain words, you then open a floodgate for litigation. Open the floodgates by all means, but you have been honest. In the absence of that, all these things that we say, yes, we will give the impression that we're moving forward, but that doubt will always linger, and that is what will interfere with this progress. There's a level at which people must be ready to be open and to be vulnerable. Now, politicians may not think so, leaders may not think so, but it is important if people are to move forward. Because otherwise, we will have these conversations, we definitely will, and we'll bring some of our most eloquent people. Like when you talk to our politicians, they talk a good talk, really good talk, especially when they're visitors. Goodness gracious me. You leave your country and say, my goodness, what a fortunate country. Such wonderful leaders. Look at their track records. They'll tell you probably a completely different story. What am I saying? I'm saying if we do not start or we do not entrench that honesty of conversation in everything that we're doing, honesty means sometimes saying this we can't do.
Yeah.
For now.
Respond to that, Sophie, as we close.
And I think absolutely fair point. And, you know, I can't speak for the British government. I know what I would say is, as a person and as an individual, and that would be to agree with you. You have to start these conversations from honesty, and you have to recognise the past. I mean, from a Welsh perspective, for example, first £1 million cheque for coal was signed in the coal exchange in our capital city in Cardiff. We have a huge debt in terms of the carbon emissions in this world, and what we are saying is we recognise that debt, and actually now we want to be at the forefront of a low carbon revolution, and as a tiny nation we want to be part of leading the world in repaying that debt, I suppose. So I think that there is certainly something about that honesty, but the complexities of politics in that often cast a lot of shade.
Right.
I mean, the horrors and the appalling past of colonisation is absolutely needs to be part of this conversation, right? When you're talking about the past and the future, absolutely.
Right. So, ladies, we want to thank you very much for coming in today and for this very good conversation. Sophie Howe is the Future Generations Commissioner for Wales, first in her country, first in the world. And Kat Tully is the former strategy advisor to Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. Future Generations Protocol. Let's start thinking future. Let's also start thinking, okay, what is the voice of everybody in the world into this? I wanted to ask the question of how do you determine what the future will want, what the future generations will want? Who speaks for the future generations?
Is this where I get my crystal ball?
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you a question in terms of, it's always quite difficult to have these conversations about the future. What has really stood out for you, and what would be your hopes from a different kind of conversation about the future that you'd like to hear said at the summit?
I think every part of the world needs to sit down and have its own conversation about what it's done, what its future looks like.
Everybody has a summit.
Yes.
Before coming, absolutely.
Yes.
I think I've heard that the Philippines may be doing something, but something like different countries doing that would be fantastic. What about you?
That's the thing. I think
yes.
Everybody has their own reality. And that you cannot have an honest conversation without everybody coming to the table with their own reality, and then being free to be able to see that reality is recognized, appreciated, and it will be part of any kind of future decision that's made. It cannot be that we have a collective conversation when I cannot bring my piece of the pie to the table.
Absolutely.
And it be acknowledged.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Well, I think that's what Senator, what the Senate are keen to do. They want to have those kind of conversations and take those forward.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's 2 minutes past 8. Keep it here for more conversations. The conversation continues. The Situation Room.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Hiya, City. Do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small mammal, big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda. mean, I don't understand. What are they
How?
saying?
We comparison. I mean, you killed mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a man. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So
See?
Your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes, my name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of God.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. You know, that's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is a hustler?
Who's a hustler? Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege.
Have you seen that lodge on Nyeri Road? Very high fence. You can't even
Windows
sleep inside.
up near the ceiling.
Yes. And if you walk that midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Things and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
The things people will believe.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing police of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. And
Okay, so we know not much happening with traffic this morning because of the holiday. Usual places where there would be nothing, actually. You're getting in and out of the city, not an issue. And so just going to keep an eye on what may pop up. Let us know where you might be this morning. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Chilled Spice.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
On to the third hour of The Situation Room this morning as we commemorate this day that has been set aside by the government for planting trees, and even bigger, for us to remember those that have passed away, those that have been affected by the floods in the country. Welcome and thank you very much for tuning in to The Situation Room on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, on YouTube, on Facebook, where we are live streaming the show. And even for those who will be catching up with this conversation, if you're catching up with the conversation a day later, 2 days later, 6 months later, we appreciate you as well. Kenya Revenue Authority has a message for you. It says you can actually just register for E-TIMS. This is for those who are not VAT registered, who do not have a VAT obligation. It's okay. You can still generate a tax invoice, and that will be linked to the Kenya Revenue Authority. It's called E-TIMS, Electronic Tax Invoice Management System. How do you do that? Just go to ecitizen.kra.go.ke. You will log into the system just like you log into your eCitizen platform. It'll ask you for your ID. You'll put in your password, and then you log in. And once you get there, you'll be on the KRA platform. From there, just go in, say sign up for E-TIMS. You sign up. If you already have an E-TIMS and you want to generate an invoice, you just go and drop down menu, invoice, generate an invoice. The information that you will need to generate an invoice, very, very simple. The PIN number of the person or entity that you're invoicing. That's it. It'll now come and tell you, okay, so this is P number 00000K. Okay, that is Habitat for Humanity Kenya. And you'll say, yes. I don't know how it's registered in KRA. Is it Habitat for Humanity Kenya?
Yes, it is.
That's how it's known by KRA.
Exactly.
Okay, Habitat for Humanity Kenya. Just say, yes, this is the institution. And then you'll put in the details. This is an invoice for XYZ services, communication services. Habitat for Humanity Kenya. Okay, the amount, X. The frequency, how many times did you do this, X. And then the total, it puts in the total. Once you say generate the invoice, simple, nice, beautiful invoice generated. You can just click email them. It goes straight to info@Habitat for Humanity. Or you can download it and then you send it. Or you print it and take it hard copy. Or however you've agreed with Habitat that you're sending an invoice. So it's simple, right? It's just 1, 2, 3, go. ecitizen.kra.go.ke. This is a long weekend. It's cold in many parts of the country. You want to stay indoors with a blanket and a tablet or a TV or a phone or whatever. Just watch something, consume some content.
Indeed. And you can find the ultimate entertainment experience as you look. And you don't have to look much further than Showmax. It's the upgraded streaming platform for Africa, where you can find all your great series, your movies, your live football, Premier League to be specific, all of that for as little as 300 shillings a month. So what do you need to do? You need to download the Showmax app, first of all, or you can visit the website www.showmax.com, find out all this great entertainment that's available, and then you can get on it. So imagine if they decide that power is going to go off, download it now while you have access to that, and then you can come in and watch it later. That's the great thing. And on different devices, mobiles, phone, tablet, laptop, television, whatever it may be, and that you can actually have entertainment on the go. Showmax, Shika, Showmax.
Kabisa, kabisa. Now we're going to have a next conversation. Hey, what's happened to my phone now? It has just decided it's going to do like that. Okay. Our next conversation is going to be about housing. Now, we've talked about housing for a number of years now in this country, okay? In fact, housing has come to the fore, which is a very good thing for our next guests, because housing now is front and center, and that's what they've been doing across the globe. What is a home? What's a house? People have been arguing, nani amelala nje? How many people have not slept in a house? Okay, and then we come in to start getting granular. What do we mean by a house? There's something called a decent house. What's a decent house? There's something called an affordable house. What's an affordable house? And that's why we have our two guests who are joining us. They are from Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity International, and then the local side, the Habitat for Humanity Kenya. Let's start with International. Patrick Kanagasingam, right?
Got it right, yes.
Patrick Kanagasingam. He is the Global COO, that's the Chief Operating Officer for Habitat for Humanity International, and Anthony Stephen Okoh is the National Director at Habitat for Humanity Kenya. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seats of the Situation Room.
Great.
And thank you very much for joining us. You both look warm. I love your jacket and I love your hoodie. I don't know which one I want.
It's pretty cold out there.
I want both.
And it wasn't planned, by the way.
Yeah. It wasn't planned.
It wasn't planned.
Just coincidental.
Yeah.
We just decided to be on brand.
Yeah, that's right. To brand ourselves.
Very good. You are on brand. City, why don't you give them the proper brand of the Situation Room?
Yes. We have proverbs from this continent every single day. And our proverb from this week comes from an East African country, East African coast. It has neighbors, Somalia, Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania,
South Sudan. Oh, yes. And the Indian Ocean. The name of the country begins with a K.
Can I take a guess?
Yes.
Kenya?
Likewise.
Okay. The two of you clearly understand the country you're in.
Oh, yes. No doubt.
The proverb for the day. This is our final proverb for this week from the country of Kenya, the Republic of Kenya. All monkeys cannot hang on the same branch.
All monkeys cannot hang on the same branch. Anthony, I want to start with you. What's your interpretation of this proverb?
Well, that's interesting because it is true that all monkeys can't hang on the same branch. You know, it says basically, from my perspective, I think we are not equal in the sense we will more or less have different coats to fit different sizes. But again, just to mention that we all can't be clumped into one room, and we all can't be contextualized to have the same standards, and more so. With the discussions today, I believe it's more or less similar because we all can't just have the same set of standards. And again, it is true that all monkeys can't fit the same branch.
Patrick, what's your global view of this?
The global view for me, and I sure hope there aren't any wrong answers here, is that I want to build on my colleague Anthony's interpretation and say, yeah, it's not one size fits all, and I think we got to respect the diversity of who we are.
Great. City?
You see, these two gentlemen speak from a position of knowledge. Not many people on this planet have actually had the opportunity and pleasure of actually seeing monkeys in their habitat. When you have, the first thing that comes to mind is when you listen to Proverb, you think of when you last saw these primates and what they were doing, and you realize, perhaps when you find many of them in a particular branch, there's a reason why. Probably what they sought to eat is found in abundance.
Or it's the only branch.
Or it's the only branch that is there, yes. But by and large, the habitat that primates inhabit are shrubbery, trees, forests, and you'll find them all over the place. But that is when they have choices. When there are more trees, you'll find them all over the trees. Yes.
So, Patrick, whenever people talk about Habitat for Humanity, many people go straight into UN habitats and they confuse the two. So, distinguish them for us.
Happy to distinguish, although I have to say that we work very closely with UN Habitat. We consider them to be a critical partner, and we do work close enough to co-create some of the solutions. There is also a distinction, though, and if you don't mind, I could just take us back historically as to how we started. I just want to take us back to rural Georgia in a place called Koinonia. We came out of a farm, and we came out of a...
Georgia, Russia, Georgia, US.
Sorry, Georgia, US.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Thank you for that clarification. And the reason I like to talk about our history is the history inspired me to join Habitat. It came out during the height of racial segregation in the United States when Clarence Jordan, a minister, a Baptist minister, decided that he was going to invite black farmers into his community and pay them equal wages. It was radical at that time, and he paid a price. There were consequences for him. But what that taught us is that courage, boldness, and conviction are critical aspects for us to pursue. And that movement became Habitat for Humanity in 1976. Again, with that mindset of a grassroots organization predicated on serving and reaching out to communities. We work in 70 countries across the globe, and we also work in the United States as well, in all 50 states. What Habitat has done traditionally is to really engage, that's how we started, volunteers with our communities. You're probably aware that we have hundreds and thousands, I'm inclined to say close to about 1 million volunteers across the globe. And that connection and the roots of that relationship has really helped inspire us to look at housing in a way Clarence Jordan inspired us with boldness. So the distinction for me when I think of UN Habitat, which is a United Nations agency, also working on similar issues with us as a civil society organization, is that we help all our partners, including UN Habitat, to bring our communities closer to the solutions that we are seeking, because we have a gigantic problem. 2.8 billion people around the world don't have access to adequate housing, and we need more partners. UN Habitat is not the only partner, but a critical partner.
So what do? You build homes for people for free?
We do a combination of things. We build homes, we advocate on behalf of our communities, either through our advocacy efforts, through policy discourse. We make sure that we engage our volunteers, we mobilize volunteers to work with our communities as well. And we also fundraise, and part of the fundraising efforts includes giving supporters an opportunity to be closer to the issues that they are supporting.
I see. So when you say there are billions of people in the world who don't have access to housing, what do we mean?
The definition here is social housing. So there are 2.8 billion people, according to the United Nations, who don't have access to adequate housing. Of the 2.8 billion, about a little over 1 billion actually live in what we call informal settlements or slums across the globe. So that is the real definition of people not having access to adequate housing, and the definition again is social housing.
Okay. So what is adequate housing?
It's a decent, safe place. So if you think of an informal settlement or a slum, people might say technically, well, but they have a dwelling. But that dwelling may not be safe. Probably that dwelling causes other types of issues like health-related issues. That dwelling may not be adequate for a child to go to school. That dwelling may actually not provide an opportunity for people to work. So what we say when we say adequate housing and decent housing, it's the opportunity to, the livability or the habitability, as we call it, is a critical part of it.
Is this a UN definition? Is there like a global definition for what is decent and affordable housing? Let's start with decent housing. What's a decent house? Is there a uniform definition for this?
There is a uniform definition around what we call habitability.
Okay.
So that's what I explained earlier. The definition is also by context as well, because I had the opportunity and the privilege to visit different parts of the world, and I can assure you, I've seen it all. There could be a house that's very modest, and that modesty is important in that particular context. But that modesty may not be as relevant, or even, quite frankly, from a habitability standpoint, might be a challenge in another part of the world. So there is a local context to the global context.
Yes, sir.
What would it look like if we do, domesticate the conversation? What would decent housing look like in Kenya, for example? What would have to be present in a decent settlement that you would, or in a settlement whereby you would now say it's decent?
Well, thank you very much. And allow me first to start by expressing my condolences first to the Kenyans who lost their lives in this season that we even have a holiday today, because I'm sure we stand alongside with them and express our sincere condolences and stand alongside them in this season. But just to come back to your question, Duke, basically in Kenya, it is actually culturally sensitive. It's culturally specific. Because you might find there's some communities where a 1 or 2 bedroom house is not culturally sensitive. Because you might find in some cultures, you'll find a 2 bedroom is ideal. Others you'll find a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom with an more or less an external amenities will be decent. So for us as Habitat, what we have done, Habitat for Humanity in Kenya, what we have done is that we've worked across to try and identify what's the ideal space. And so part of the units that we work with here in Kenya is approximately 33 square meters, which is actually a 2 bedroom house, and actually then has a small sort of like living room and a store, and then externally they have toilets and bathrooms which are actually segregated. And so for us, for an ideal setup, it's actually a house that will actually give you the comfort of coming in. If there's that cultural aspects of daughters cannot spend in the same room with the parents, we actually take that into context as we factor that in. And so it'll actually vary from community to community, but in ideal situations in Kenya, they look at a social housing, look at anything between 33 square meters to 50 square meters in terms of size.
And what about the building materials?
Yeah. One of the good things about what we do as Habitat for Humanity, when you look at building materials, we actually try to contextualize it to the locality in which we build. You'll find that in some situations, for example in Western, you'll find that we have actually worked with communities to look at materials that are conducive around that area. So in some cases, in the past, they used to have bricks that they'd actually more or less brick. They'll heat it up and actually use that as more or less stone. But actually, we are now working with institutions, especially universities and researchers, to actually come up with newer technologies, such as stabilizing salt blocks, that actually tends to, again, reduce that aspect of burning bricks to increase the carbon footprint. And so as Habitat, what we'll do, just to answer your question, Siti, we look at materials that are conducive to the various different localities. So one, we can either use stone, we can either use stabilizing soil stabilizing blocks. We can also use other materials such as what we call injectable concrete forms. That is a form of styrofoam that actually helps to more or less substitute, reduce the amount of stones that we use. And so in a nutshell, as Habitat, let's take a step back and say, when we talk of building materials, we will look at the context in which we are building the homes and actually contextualize it to that setup.
Then comes the discussion of affordability.
Exactly.
Because if you're saying you're using readily available materials, good. But the process that you speak of will add a cost to it. How then do you factor the capacity of the individual? Because I'm taking the point of view that the bulk of our population is actually in the rural areas.
True.
Okay?
True.
So I'm looking at a very sensible approach that you have of using materials that are local to ensure that somebody builds some decent dwelling. Now, what is it that you do to ensure that all the factors that go into building this particular house, you mentioned material, yes. You said it's localized, yes, we understand. You've taken in the cultural context, okay. Cost, what do you do?
Cost is definitely something that we look into as Habitat for Humanity, because for one, and you look at the context of social housing, one of the things that we look at, most of the people who have access to social housing are people who live in less than $2 a day. And if you look at the definition of social housing in Kenya, these are people who literally in a month do not earn more than 6,000. Shillings in a month. And so as we look at housing and as we look at the context, we try and ensure that most of the houses that we build can actually suit these individuals. A case in point here. For example, if we were to go in and look at, for example, some of the housings that we factored into the communities that we engaged in, what's very important for us is to ensure that first and foremost, it actually meets the regulatory requirements, which is very critical. And two, we're using the locally available material so that you actually reduce the cost of transportation of materials into the area. What does that mean in terms of costing? Basically, for most of the social housings that we construct, will be anything between 600,000 to 800,000 shillings, a complete unit of 2-bedroom of 33 square meters. Yeah, just to put numbers to whatever. What does that translate to? I know you might say, well, with somebody who is earning 3,000, how would they be able to afford that? But just to have context, we actually want to say that helps us to ensure that we navigate within the different parameters to factor in the prices.
Where I'm going,
I see the smile.
I'm smiling, but where I'm going with my question is, because as you're speaking, I'm thinking of, say, the way people build houses in my neck of the woods.
Yes.
And how much it actually costs. And I'm looking at houses that are built for relatives and how much it has cost.
Yeah.
What the frame is. That house is built in 2 days.
Exactly.
Okay? Literally. Wood. Some bamboo, you structure it.
Yeah.
The only time you use a lot of wood is when you're putting up the roofing, okay? Then the rest is a mixture of mud, sand, okay?
Yeah.
At the end of it, when it's dried, they'll use cement to sort of like smoothen it.
Plaster.
Plaster. That is the word, okay? And somebody has a house that they're happy with, okay? And I'm looking at traditional housing before the iron sheets came into being, which were grass thatched, what have you. Now, why am I going in this direction? I'm saying what you've just told me makes a great deal of sense. But if you do what you do, the how, is it you as the organization, or is it you and the community at large? Because if the community is part and parcel of the process, then very many things will work with a lot more ease, and the cost element will be that much more reduced.
Very well said, City. And actually, our mantra as Habitat for Humanity is to ensure that we don't build as Habitat. First and foremost, we work with building capacity of the communities that we actually engage with, our local partners. In fact, most people will say beneficiaries, but we say they are partners, because in most cases, we are working alongside with them to first and foremost build their capacity, and as we then use them to now become the ones who do the construction themselves. Because our mantra as Habitat for Humanity is to ensure that as we go into the community, we are going there recognizing that we are just equipping them with the skill sets and the tools, and they thereafter go and use those skill sets and tools to actually equip other homes. What we do in terms of our volunteers, we ensure that as we engage the local community, first and foremost, they're the ones who will identify those people who will actually build for. They're the ones who come together as a community and help in terms of the construction. And so a lot of the labor comes from the community. A lot of the thought process and a lot of the materials come from the community, and hence that is how we're able to reduce the cost of our housings.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and continue the conversation shortly. 28 minutes to 9. We are talking about decent, affordable housing. What does it mean from a global context, from a Kenyan context? Patrick Kanagasingam is the Group Chief Operating Officer at Habitat for Humanity International, and Anthony Stephen Okoh is the National Director for Habitat for Humanity Kenya. They will tell us more about this after this break. Keep it here.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Shika so much more from the Premier League on your phone or tablet with Showmax.
Skips around,
with Showmax, you can pause and rewind live matches and start them late and watch them as live if you are late. And Showmax has a range of data-saving options so that your network doesn't affect your fun.
It's ended up in the back of the net. It's Isika ball rate.
Shika so much more from the Premier League with Showmax from just 500 shillings a month by card or by M-Pesa. Shika Showmax. Streaming for Africa. Sign up on showmax.com.
Experience the vibrant pulse of Africa at Festac Africa Festival 2024 in Kisumu. Join us for a week-long celebration of culture, music, fashion, and more from May 20th to 26th. Dive into sustainable growth with food, art, education, and youth empowerment. Don't miss Africa's premier Pan-African and global cultural exchange program. Get your tickets now. One day for 500 Kenya shillings or the full week for 2,000 Kenya shillings. Kisumu County welcomes the world to be part of Africa's forward movement. Act fast and secure your spot in this unforgettable journey. To register, just go to www.festacafrica.org.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 23 and highs of 25 in a partly sunny Nakuru at 18. It's 18 and partly sunny in Nyeri with highs of 24. And we'll see highs of 24 in a partly cloudy Eldoret at 16. It's mostly cloudy at 25 in Mombasa, going to highs of 30 today, and we'll see highs of 30 as well. In a mostly cloudy Malindi at 26. It's 24 and sunny in Kisumu with highs of 28, while Kakamega at 22 is sunny. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 17. Kampala at 22 is sunny, highs of 27, and at 26, it's partly sunny in Dar es Salaam, going to highs of 31 and lows of 24. Johannesburg is sunny at 16 with highs of 25, and looking into a sunny Mogadishu at 28, we'll see highs of 32 and highs of 24 in a sunny Addis Ababa at 18. Lagos is sunny at 28, highs of 34, and we'll see highs of 34 in a mostly cloudy Kinshasa at 25.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM,
We're back, 25
Nairobi.
minutes to 9. Our conversation continues. Habitat for Humanity International and Habitat for Humanity Kenya. Decent and affordable housing. If I just see if I got it right, Patrick. So as Habitat for Humanity, what you do is you mobilize. You mobilize resources, you mobilize volunteers who will come in and give either knowledge, skill, material resources, financial resources. You mobilize a community that will give you the knowledge of who needs a house. You also mobilize a community to come in and offer support in putting up decent, affordable houses for people. True?
That's very true, and I think you summed it up so well. I mean, you pretty much summed up the housing value chain of all the critical stakeholders.
Where is the government?
The government is critical. I like the way my colleague Anthony, gave perspective from a Kenyan standpoint. And if I may use Kenya as an example, since I'm here, it's typical for us to work with the government and through the government, but not only the government. The government is a partner. The government, in essence, pretty much, if I may, no pun intended, but holds the keys, so to speak, in terms of when it comes to the housing agenda. And I am so inspired when I travel around the world and see how governments are so engaged. They all see housing as a critical priority, a social issue, and across the globe, every country where we have footprint, it's not unusual for us to have a formal partnership agreement, whether it's at the national level or at the local level with government.
Okay. Are there countries that you have, traveled and worked as Habitat for Humanity International, where you find government policies and programs are actually making it easier for people to access homes, where the job of Habitat for Humanity maybe is just coming in the last mile?
Definitely, the short answer is yes, and yet you would appreciate when we think about the global housing deficit, there's always room to do more. A critical part of the work that we do is to partner with the government and, as needed, create more awareness, but also to learn from the government in terms of what they have to share with us. Creating awareness with the government is an opportunity we have through even global campaigns. So when I talked about informal settlements, I said there are 1 billion people who live around the world. And we work with governments across the globe, but with targeted governments as well, to say, listen, this is a big problem, and you have a bigger role to play than you think it is. And our urge and our exhortation is, please work with us, but not only through us, to ensure that you're not just creating awareness, but you're using your voice. Think of the G7, think of the G20 or the G77, for example. There are tremendous opportunities that we are leveraging right now, particularly in the context of informal settlements through a campaign called Home Equals. And that's just one example to illustrate how we can engage and actually encourage governments to do more.
What would you say is the more for governments to do? Because usually there is a battle for resources at any government level, and at the very least certain things should be there should be a certain thing that should be the very basic, right? So what would be the counter, or what would be the encouragement to governments who say, well, you know what, I have so many things that I have to do, and here you are saying that everybody in the country then should have 1, 2, 3. What would then be the way out for that?
From a government standpoint? For the government?
The government to take.
So, but what we do is, without just calling out the problem statement, we come up with propositions, or we are eager to offer creative solutions where we can co-create with the government. I'll give you one example. Just a couple of years ago, I was in El Salvador in Central America. We had built 50,000 homes in 30 years. That was a remarkable achievement by any stretch. Only to be told that close to 80% of Salvadorians don't have access to adequate housing. So because we built homes, and that's critical, we build so that we can also influence and work with governments and other stakeholders. Because we had built so many homes, we had access to talk to the Minister of Housing. The conversation was something like this, for us to say, we love the fact that we have an opportunity to build in your country, work with our staff, with our supporters locally to do this. And yet, is there an opportunity for us to look at your national housing policy? That is the do more part for us, to say, how can we help you, and how can you help us through your national housing policy? And the invitation from the Minister of Housing at that point was to say, can you give us more input? And the same in Cambodia, when at a different part of the world. And they look for this kind of technical assistance based on our global footprint to say, we don't pretend that we have all the answers, but because our posture is to learn and to work with and through partners, they're very open to the idea. So for me, the do more part is to say, can we do more than what you're currently doing, even in the form of investments? If I can just use one more example, and this is at a local government level in Honduras. Our national organization in Honduras did a tremendous job advocating with the local government to actually strengthen their policy around housing. Because the local government was able to do it so successfully, the national government, as part of their in terms of the budget transfer to their decentralized budget, actually almost doubled or tripled the amount of investments when it came to housing. So for us, that's the do more part.
So there's a lot of advocacy at that national, international level, right?
Maybe just to mention that even at the sub-national level, just to give an example, for example, over the last 3 years, we've done almost 100 social homes in Laikipia. And part of the things that we have done alongside them is come up with an MOU, and part of the MOU actually encompasses the Laikipia County government coming in and actually even saying, for you people, when you're focusing on social housing, we will waive up some costs, we'll actually even give some land, we'll actually help you work to ensure that the basic infrastructure, even like, for example, the basic things like water, looking at the sanitation, is well taken care of. And so in most cases, when we say do more, we are working alongside with the government maybe to put up the social houses, but there we are working alongside also them to identify infrastructure opportunities that then are meant to then factor in to ensure that there's a settlement-based practice going forward.
Anthony, which is bigger? Your engagement with government and starting from that government to community, or your engagement with community and then bringing in the government later? Which one do you do more?
I think for us it's striking a balance. The reason is that for us, we serve the community and we actually come up with a lot of human-centered solutions which are drawn from the community up. But again, ensuring that as we engage the community, we are working with the government to ensure that the policies and the frameworks to create the enabling environment are well in place. And so I'll say it's a balance of both the two.
Okay, so let me just ask the direct question.
Yes.
Right now, government's big plan, big four in the previous government, housing is big, right? What has been the involvement and the level of involvement of Habitat for Humanity, Kenya and the international? At county level, CIDPs, every 5 years we have a county integrated development plan. Are you involved in engaging the community so that the issue of housing is put in the CIDP?
Yes. I'd actually boldly say yes, because we do it in using a two-pronged approach. One is we sit at the table when the discussions are happening, and we actually contribute towards a lot of the documents that are being developed. And then two, we actually encourage to get part of the local partners, the communities, on the table to actually voice their sentiments. Part of what we do with the Home Equals campaign, especially, is to work with communities and get the communities to sit at the table so that their voice is also heard before the government and they actually can contribute towards a lot of the documents that are happening. A good case in point, it's a bit controversial, I know right now, part of what we have been engaging as Habitat for Humanity is getting the team, using partners, other partners, Akiba Mashinani, we've been sitting with them in Mukuru Kwanjenga and getting those communities to actually sit in front of government and actually speak and be part of the solutions that are being crafted in terms of the affordable housing agenda. So I'd say it's a two-pronged approach where we can directly engage and we sit at the table as Habitat for Humanity, and secondly, we also work with the communities, the local partners, to bring them at the table so that their voice is also part of the conversation. I'm sure you'll recall during the last devolution conference that happened in Homa Bay, we had the privilege of taking some of the communities that we work with here into the devolution conference and get their voice heard in terms of speaking, especially in forums that we had around the housing and affordable housing agenda.
What's currently going on in Kenya? And I'll ask both of you, but I want to start with Patrick because you are at the level where you're not so locally, politically involved. You could say so. Currently in Kenya, there is the housing and affordable housing program being rolled out by government. All right, identify lands. So there you have waived the cost of land because this is using public land. And then coming up with incentives and saying, so let's bring in the private sector. We're going to waive VAT. We're going to waive some of these duties on the cost of materials that are being used. So we try and bring down the cost of housing and then identifying those that are going to be able to take up these houses. This is the program as it's going, all right? I know you've engaged with other countries. You've also engaged with Kenya at this particular point. Would like to hear your views on this. What is, in your opinion, working and good, and what, in your opinion, could be a red flag that needs maybe to be looked at and reviewed by government?
Yeah, it's a very important question, and again, I think context matters as well. I like the way my colleague Anthony, when your previous question, used the term, it's not an either or, is what he said when you asked sequentially, between government and the community. And I would pretty much say the same thing when we use terms like affordable housing, social housing. Context really matters. Now, bear in mind, for us as a global organization, we also work in the United States as well. And the crisis in the United States is affordability. So affordable housing and solutions related to affordability is a big part of the local context. So one of the things that we do is to work with financial institutions, but also with developers. Because if the developers are not part of that value chain, we cannot attain the scale to solve the problem. Internationally, what I would say is this. 10 years ago, we introduced Microbill. It was a wholesale microfinance fund. And it was really to provide access to the most marginalized communities who cannot access formal financial institutions. Why? They need just not to buy homes, but they need to repair homes as well. And they cannot go and find an off-the-shelf product. And what we did was we worked through financial intermediaries, primarily microfinance institutions, to provide just not the financial assistance, but also the technical assistance. I'm happy to say, because we brought the private sector in, we brought financial institutions in, and several other investors, we were able to leverage a $100 million fund and catalyze it to the value of about $1 billion over a 10-year period, and reached more than 1 million people in 33 countries. It was so successful that we are now looking at the second phase of it. And again, we are working with development finance institutions, investors. Now, why am I sharing this is to say, when you look at the gigantic nature of the problem that we are trying to solve, be it you asked questions about the government, be it the government, be it the private sector, including developers, but also investors, but also to Anthony's point about our local communities, we call it the P4 approach, people, public, private, because all three are as important when it comes to the housing value chain if we are to really be successful in both building but also influencing the systems that's causing the housing deficit.
But I'd like to stress on something, Eric, because one thing I just want to bring to highlight is that we recognize that the government has focused on the affordable housing within the urban space. The biggest gap still remains at the rural context. And for us as Habitat, that's the space that we focused. I'm sure all of us will relate to the fact that within our community and within our backyard, there's that one relative of ours who is impoverished, who doesn't have some form of income, but has a land somewhere, you know, and they don't actually have that space to occupy, and they don't have anything to put up. So for us as Habitat for Humanity, our primary focus is to see how do we engage primarily within the rural context, the rural setup, to ensure that, especially for those who we say are not in the bracket of even purchasing a home or even affording a home, how do we actually work with our mechanisms, first to gather people around, to galvanize resources, and actually ensure that we empower them. We actually get them out of that cycle. And basically, by ensuring that we are then not necessarily only focusing on the urban agenda, which is also part of our key agenda for us, we've primarily focused on showing that how do we elevate most of the people who are impoverished, especially in the rural context, and more so with the fact that, again, most of the drivers in terms of migration pressure is rural-urban migration, because they're trying to look for something to do. So for us, we say, how do we mitigate that? How do we ensure that we can create some form of livelihood, some form of settlement, some form of security, some form of hope to those people within the rural context?
So they can stay there.
Yeah, so that they can stay there.
Okay. In the urban side, on the urban side, what the government is rolling out now in the affordable housing program, looking at all the various aspects of it, right? I know it's very controversial right now in the country, but maybe there's some things that you see and you look at and you say, okay, here the government is onto something good, and here the government is onto something good, but maybe the approach, what would advise to be different. You can list those.
To be frank, I think for us, our passion as Habitat for Humanity is that everybody deserves a decent place to live. And so we would not want to be in that space where we say this is wrong or right in terms of the framework.
Right,
yes. True. But for us, the truth of the matter is we're excited that people are having to access homes and actually able to get homes. I think for us is the people who deserve those homes, will they actually end up getting those homes? You know, in the sense of most of you have experience even with Nyeri High Rise. Nyeri High Rise was meant for a certain target group, but who ended up owning those spaces? And so I think for us it's just creating the right frameworks so that the people who we set out to achieve those products actually end up getting them.
How would you do it to make sure that the rightful beneficiaries end up in those homes? If you talk about just the social housing program of the government, right, which is where you focus on, what would be the things that you think should be very important to make sure that the deserving people end up being the beneficiaries of the social housing scheme by the government?
One of the good things is that if you look at the definition for those who would benefit for the social housing in Kenya, again, as earlier said, the government has defined for those who earn less than 3,000 or 6,000 combined will be the ones who actually get access to the social housing. And what is critical is ensuring that I know the Social Affairs has a list of how they've graduated and actually how they have classified different individuals, and hence some, when they're doing even the cash transfers, people, they use that even as a framework. I think for me what's important is recognizing that using the same framework without duplicating and having a separate one to actually identify those who will then benefit as part of that. But I think for me what is critical is recognizing that even as you do an allocation, is recognizing first there's a community that existed within that space. How do you take care of ensuring that those communities are not displaced but are also integrated into the solution? And so for me, engaging the community to be part of the discussions, to be part of the engagement, such that even as they do the allocations, the communities don't feel left out and they're part of the solutions.
Patrick, when you look at a country that you have mentioned and who one could say built the spiritual foundation on which this organization now runs, how have they dealt with rural-urban migration, and how have they dealt with the possibility of informal settlements coming up?
Yeah, it's such a fantastic question. This is a struggle. It goes without saying more than half the global population now is urban. And if I'm not mistaken, it's going to go up to as much as more than 60, close to 65%, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years. It's a couple of things are happening. There is the housing equation that Anthony and I are talking about, but the other aspects that we ought to, that's related to housing, is just basic infrastructure services. The social infrastructure itself is weakening due to urbanization. By that I mean basic care, basic services, etc. It's a huge problem. One of the things that we haven't touched on thus far, but it's important even from a housing lens because it has absolute correlation to your question that you just raised about urbanization, is climate and climate change. The nexus between housing, migration, rural-urban migration, climate change is all having a bearing. And the learning for us as an organization whose posture is really predicated on learning is to say, we are not the experts in all this. We don't honestly have all the answers. But guess what we're going to do? We want to work with the experts. It's an invitation. The reason why Anthony and I are really doubling down on partnerships is because Habitat, again, based on the posture of learning and our experience, primarily working with communities, is we realize in the greater interest of the people we are called to serve, primarily our communities, it's in our best interest, whether it's working with governments, whether it's working with the private sector, but community-based organizations. You know, to your question, some of the best solutions actually reside within our communities, so how we engage is critical. But the other critical part is there are organizations that actually specialize. Like when I was here in Nairobi, I met with my colleagues. My colleagues and I met with the UN Environment Program for us to talk and ask them critical questions saying, can we actually work together because our agenda is pretty much the same when it comes to this particular issue around housing, as opposed to really having competing agendas.
You know, it's interesting. If you look at, say, for instance, the decision makers in our country, they all have rural homes.
Yeah.
And very many of them grew up in the rural areas. I guess the bulk of them grew up in the rural areas. So the sort of housing that you speak of in many rural homes was one room. And what they call semi-permanent. Now, when you come into town and what you can afford is that one room, you're not really far removed from what you grew up seeing.
True.
So the mind to bring about what we're discussing meets resistance, not because someone doesn't want it, but you're not telling them, you're actually introducing them to a fairly strange concept. See, formal education doesn't quite remove your socialization from your system. I'm saying this because if I look at the amount of efforts that have been put into some of these things, and I look at what we like touting as Kenyans as a very well-educated population, and yet the efforts to bring about these changes are rather slow compared to the rhetoric of how well-knowledged we are. Speak.
You know, I somehow get the impression that you were part of some of our internal conversations over the past few days, because every question that you ask is pretty much based on what we are talking about. What you just said is what we call the cultural norms and changes that ought to happen hand in hand if we are to honestly be effective. So there's a mindset change that's required, and you brought up this issue between rural and urban, and I think the mindset is to say, can we just make this transition based on the old mindset? And we are saying, actually, even if you want to, that's going to be a challenge for you based on the challenges that we talked about. Because we are an organization that works very closely with communities, our own learning over the past few decades has been that it's okay sometimes to pause and say, maybe we need to actually invest more time listening and learning before we just jump to the solutions. And the reason I'm saying that again is because, look at us. Someone said to me when I was in South America just last year when we had a housing forum, this person had worked for the United Nations for about 25 years, he said, for the first time, I'm glad that the nexus between housing and climate is surfacing in a way that it's never surfaced before, and thanked us. But quite frankly, shouldn't be thanking us. You know, we learned it from our communities. We learned it from our partners. So to your question, I would say the cultural change, the beauty of our global outlook whilst being still local, is that our communities have actually given us a platform to learn. And that is what we really want to build on. Again, no pun intended when I said build on.
Well, look at the time. It's coming up to 9 a.m. And thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Let me prepare my tongue to pronounce your name. Patrick Kanagasingam is the Global COO at Habitat for Humanity International, whereas Anthony Stephen Okoh is the National Director at Habitat for Humanity Kenya. We have been having this conversation about decent and affordable housing, and at least we know one or two more. Thank you very much for joining us. Keep it here for more conversations. It's 9 a.m.
Life.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now, I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's betting, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Welcome to SpiceFM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
This is one of the hottest show that we can ever miss in the morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the Situation Room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Ndutha, nice meeting you. And even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again.
Character is like pregnancy. You cannot hide it. You know, people hiding here and there, you know, but after 2, 3 months, 5 months, now you realize, so that is why the attitude that you were showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say. You cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. You know, that's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is a hustler?
Who is a hustler? Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege.
Have you seen that lodge on Nyeri Road? Very high fence. You can't even
Windows
sleep inside.
up near the ceiling.
Yes. And if you walk there at midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Things and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
The things people will believe.
Well. The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Patrick Lodge, Otieno Lumumba. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
CT Muga.
CT Lodge.
Muga, not Muga.
He's here, and here's the day's proverb.
One man marries a woman. Another man marries troubles.
Is he the same man?
Spice.
A lion cannot eat more than 2 donkeys. It will die a natural death because there is no ICU in the forest. In Kenya, it has become the situation that you cannot conduct 2 elections. In fact,
with the same
Bukati,
IBC.
You can't.
I told you about this Indian friend of mine who was enjoying other Indians in the group. He wrote the word valve and told them, read it.
So how did he say it? I really want to know.
The valve. Kina Ednah, it's like you said, the bees and the peas. Kila kitu mkapo mkisia kisema atasema opposite.
Opposite?
Ukisema yeye anasema opposite. Opposite. Ukisikiliza na mimi unasikia opposite.
The Situation Room, Spice. The only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Unright. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Not much of a traffic problem this morning. Just a little bit of that at the junction on North Airport Road that then goes towards Outer Ring, and just a little bit. It shouldn't be a problem. Just folks getting where they're going at some point this morning. We're also looking at traffic then coming in through Uhuru Highway, in and outbound to the city. But again, nothing too terrible. Keeping an eye on things this morning. We'll know that traffic will not be a problem today as we continue through it. Let's talk on Spice FM, KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only way to
On
start
to
your...
the final hour of the Situation Room this Friday, the 10th of May, 2025. Like Ndu has said, all roads are leading to forests and bushes and gardens. Anywhere, just go plant a tree. Okay? And also, take this day, if you're able to, visit any of the displaced families in any part of this country. Go visit them. If you can take something to them, just take clothes. Remember, people have lost everything. Everything. Rain came, like the story of the lady that we read about yesterday, Anyango. She has lost her daughter, her 2 grandchildren, and everything in their house in Mathare gone. So, as she mourns the loss of 3 family members, close family members, she'll also have to think where to start.
Where to begin?
So if you can afford anything, please support those that are there. That's the purpose, one of the purposes of today's public holiday. The Kenya Revenue Authority tells you, as you do all those things, you can dial star 222 hash and you register for E-TIMS, okay? Star 222. So what? Hash. Hebu fanya hivyo.
How many twos?
Take 3 twos.
3 twos. Hash.
222. Do it just now. Take your phone.
Star 22222 hash.
Just 3 twos.
That's what I said.
2 3s, 3 twos. Okay. When you go there, it's the eCitizen USSD platform. Then you will go to tax payment 5, tax payment KRA. You click on 5. Then it tells you E-TIMS invoice, blah blah blah, pay KRA bill. Right? You see that? Yeah, that's the eCitizen USSD platform. Or you can go to the mobile one, no, to the online one. That's ecitizen.kra.go.ke. If you're not registered, they will walk you through very simple steps of registering for E-TIMS. If you now like to generate an E-TIMS invoice, very simple as well. Very simple. And you can just do it. And you send an invoice. The importance of doing this is, as Kerry says, first of all, it's in the Finance Act 2024 and 2023. And it's also part of just making sure that everybody is tax compliant as we do our daily business.
Yep.
Today is Friday.
It is.
Once you finish planting trees,
you'll be back home. And you're going to be looking for something to do.
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Imagine.
Perhaps. But let me tell you, get on to Showmax's great platform. It's an upgraded entertainment viewing platform. And I know, City, you're looking at me like that because what? Because this weekend you can watch your documentary movies, you can watch your series movies, you can watch your movies.
You can watch Arsenal beating Man U.
You can watch your football movies.
Arsenal beating Man U.
It's the stuff of the movies.
Closer and closer to the title.
So all of these things.
Movies.
Inside. Now, Showmax. Download it on your Google Play Store for you. Of your many gadgets, CT.
Which is Google
Play
which
Store.
Is Apple.
And there's Apple.
Okay, so now on one of those ones, you can download the app, and then you can get into all the different, categories that you could then pay for, as low as 300 shillings a month, and you get into this wonderful world of HD entertainment, HD on your phone, HD on your tab, HD on your laptop, HD on your TV. Imagine HD, movie, series, football, all inside. Shika Showmax. What else do you want to shika for?
Akuna. And like you said, it is so simple. Just download the app like that. Simple, painless. Not a teeth pulling exercise. Brings us into our conversation. We have dentists with us in the studio. Hey. Dr. Job Otieno is a hygienist.
Okay.
And then Dr. Dorothy Keegan is a general dentist. What's general dentist? As opposed to
special
dental surgeon.
Well, no, technically I'm a dental surgeon as well.
Okay.
When you do your undergraduate, you get a dual degree.
All right.
So my official title is dental surgeon.
Okay.
But there are specialties that you can go into. There are people who go into pediatrics, there are people who do braces, and so on and so forth.
I see.
So I'm the first line. General.
I thought general means the whole mouth. There are those who specialize in incisors, and then there are those who just go for the molars.
Well, there's always room. Okay. You never know what someone will come up with.
So, you'll tell us about what is this thing that you do, that you're a hygienist?
Oh yeah, dental hygiene. Yeah, it's an aspect of dentistry which deals with the preventive portion of dentistry, and mostly we work alongside in collaboration with the dentists and other dental professionals. So our job is to ensure that people are healthy first, so that they don't need dentists.
I
Or
see.
they don't get into pain.
I see. So you help us avoid painful future.
Yes. We are the friendly portion of dentistry.
Okay.
That's where we're trying to take our focus, prevention rather than cure.
Okay.
Yes.
Siti will welcome you with the day's proverb. Please listen to the proverb, and then you'll give us your interpretation of it. The proverbs for this week have been from
the country of Kenya, the Republic of Kenya, the East African country of Kenya, etc., etc., etc.
And so on and so forth.
And so forth.
Yeah.
This is our final proverb for this week. All monkeys cannot hang on the same branch.
All monkeys cannot hang on the same branch. Dr. Dorothy, what's your interpretation of it?
Well, that sounds like resource distribution. That's what I would look at from my side. I'm trying to look at it from a dental point of view. But my initial point would be, you can't all do the same thing. You can't all have the same approach to things. Just the same way my colleague and I specialize in different things. You know, one person needs to do one thing, one person needs to do the other thing. If you all focus too much on one thing, that's a recipe for disaster. So all branches, focus on other branches, distribute yourselves. That would be my interpretation.
Distribute the monkeys.
The good doctor here has changed the proverb completely.
You asked for my interpretation. I've given you that.
No, I'm not saying it as though it's a negative thing. When you ask for your opinion and interpretation,
yes,
you're allowed to do what you like.
Very nice.
Yes, exactly.
I like that.
Okay.
Coming to you.
Job.
Yes.
So for me, I think I'd still concur with her. All monkeys cannot hang on one branch. That means there's a tree and there are other branches at the same time. So if they go on one branch, they might fall all of them, or maybe they might break the tree. So I'm trying to imagine it's not good for for people to depend on one source or just one thing. At least to see other things they can do, or maybe other places they can hold.
All of us can't be dentists.
All of us can be dentists.
Yes, but you actually contradict what she said. You don't quite agree with her.
But what she said is also true.
No, I'm not saying it's not true. See, because what she said
is a contradiction.
The contradiction is, she said, all trees can't hang on a monkey. That's
Which is also true.
Okay. Let's start with the hygienist. So, what is dental hygiene?
So as I said earlier, dental hygiene is an aspect of dentistry. It's not big in Kenya yet, but most countries in the West and like in other countries, they're doing dental hygiene. So it's an aspect of dentistry that brings the preventive aspect. So a dental hygienist is someone who is a preventive specialist who does the preventive work. They help patients to take good care of their teeth. They help patients who are already having disease to help them manage it. Yeah. So if a patient maybe has seen a dentist and they are like, okay, how will I take better care of my teeth? How will I brush? How will I floss? What else do I need to do? Which products do I use? Yeah. Patients who have dentures, like, what do I do with my denture? How do I help? Like, how do I manage this? So they are preventing and also helping patients to manage. So most patients who go regularly
brushing teeth, basically,
taking care of the teeth and the whole mouth at large. Yeah.
Bottom line, so that you make sure that your teeth remain healthy, and so that you avoid going to Dr. Kigen.
So that you avoid pain. Yeah.
Okay. You avoid the pain that would come with it. I see. And then, when people come with pain, is all pain the same?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not. Okay, so pain is interesting because pain is one of the most subjective things. If someone comes to me and tells me, by the way, I'm feeling a lot of pain, I can't tell you, no, you're not. All right? So it's and you can't measure it. We have scales, and I'll say, okay, how bad is the pain according to you? What is a 1 for someone might be a 10 for someone else. So let's start with that. Yeah. So pain It's mental in the sense that you're the person who's feeling it, and I have to trust you when you say, I'm in a lot of pain. So once that is and that's usually the starting point for a lot of people. It's really a culture for us. Because of that trauma around dentistry, you avoid it at all costs until you can't avoid it anymore.
You can't sleep at night.
That's the thing. So a lot of times we have people in the waiting room, umejishika, like you can tell someone is not all right. So we're trying to move away from the culture of letting it get to that point.
Okay. When someone is coming with pain, what does it mean?
What do you mean? What does it mean?
Yeah.
Well, it means they're in pain. What I will do...
Yeah, what's causing it?
So the first thing is I'll ask your history, because there are very many different causes, right? It could be from within the mouth. The most common things would be from the teeth or from the gums, for example. Less common things, there are wounds, we don't want to go into cancers immediately, but there's that. There's also trauma. You're in an accident. Rugby players, you got hit. Those are our most common sources. Yeah. So what I would do first is take a history, find out what happened, how long is it, how bad is it, and then I will take a look, do our investigations, and then we see what we can do about it.
So the pain is a symptom of something. The pain is always a symptom. The pain is not the disease.
The pain is not the disease,
right?
And that's something that people tend to, like when you're trying to manage it yourself, you'll take painkillers for a couple, and then it's gone away. You think it's over, but the thing that was causing the pain is likely to still be present. So we have to find out what was causing it and then address that.
Are the things that cause the pain, the diseases that cause the pain, usually brought on by the individual? Is it things that you do that would cause a disease, or are they naturally occurring diseases?
Okay, so it could be one of either. Things are usually multifactorial. Human beings are very complex, and teeth are actually much more complex than you would think. So there are the habits that lifestyle, let's say, the way you live your life, the way you clean your teeth, the foods you eat, all those things can contribute to putting you in a situation where you're now in pain. You have an infection, you have this. Some things are naturally occurring, some things you can't help. For example, what we're talking about, trauma, although even when we talk about that, like the sports players, there are things you can do to mitigate. Mouth guards, things like that, to try and protect yourself. Avoid fighting, make good choices. Make good choices. Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of those things? I want you to name some of those diseases or some of those issues. If we start from here, that would get to here. What are some of those things that you say that would be causes of these pains? I mean, we've heard about them. Gingivitis, I don't know, cavities.
So usually I tell my patients 90% of the issues of the mouth are caused by bacteria. It's like the bacteria is the root cause of almost all evils in the mouth. Not all, maybe you could exclude trauma and maybe cancers and all that, but mostly it's bacteria. So every time we are living, we are controlling bacteria. That's why everybody is told to brush every day. And bacteria usually they multiply very fast. And when they multiply very fast, that means they are in your mouth all through. After you brush in minutes, they are back. You brush in minutes, they're back. Yeah. So the bacteria are the ones that initiate teeth decay. They're the ones that makes the gums to start bleeding. They're the ones that cause the gum disease. It's called gingivitis. Sometimes people who don't take care of gingivitis, it goes to a severe state, which is called periodontitis. So it's very important for one to control the bacteria. So it's the bacteria that causes most of those, plus smelling mouth and most of the sores in the mouth, bacteria.
In terms of decay, sorry.
I was going to ask if those things can all be prevented.
Oh yeah, for sure. Most dental issues are preventable. Of course, they're preventable. By eliminating this one, you can eliminate the bacteria and also work on the diet. Because caries formation starts with it's the diet, a sugary diet, especially simple sugars, and then the bacteria. So when the bacteria feeds on the sugar, it produces an acid. That acid now demineralizes the tooth enamel and then causes a decay. So the tooth starts decaying. If you don't do anything about it early enough, it keeps on going until it reaches the nerve. Now that the pain comes.
Now, Job, many people will swear that they brush every day.
Daily.
Once, twice.
3 times.
Then somebody in the same household, somebody will have teeth issues. The other person will not. They eat the same things. They brush. They have the same habits. So what is this bacteria thing? Why does it choose me and not the other person?
I think that's a good concern, a very important one. So usually everybody's mouth are different. Their teeth are arranged differently, and the way they brush is different. You can just have the brush, but then you're not brushing all your teeth. You're just brushing one side, or maybe you want to make your smile brighter, so you just brush the front teeth only. and then you leave the back teeth. Yeah? Or at some point, you're just brushing like the teeth only on the out surfaces and the in surfaces, so you leave the in between. So the in betweens could cause cavities the same way it would have caused if you did not brush. So it's important for somebody to master to know the technique. And this.
Walk us through this technique, because clearly brushing teeth is not a
It's
brushing
not just brushing teeth.
Yes.
Yes.
So what does one do?
So
you can straighten the mic as we.
So the tooth anatomy, the tooth has five surfaces. Mostly molars have 5 surfaces, yeah? So you have to brush the back of the teeth on the sides. So like it's the outer surfaces. So you brush the outer surfaces gently.
How do you brush it?
Like I wish I had a brush. I'd have demonstrated. But
use a pen.
The front and back motions, usually they have a lot of friction. They have a lot of friction, and that one causes damage on the enamel later on. Yeah, so it's important to brush just gently. Use a soft brush, and then what you're doing is just gentle brushing from put the brush at a 45 degrees. Yeah, 45 degrees angle towards the gum, a little bit towards the gum, so that you're removing most of the bacteria that lodge around the gum, between the gum and the tooth. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're brushing in circular motion, gently, and then it's also important.
For how long?
At least 2 minutes. At least 2 minutes. Don't just do it.
And that's longer than you think.
2 minutes of 2 minutes of.
Yes, 2 minutes.
It's 2 minutes.
Okay.
Long.
It is 9:22. Continue talking. I'll tell you when 2 minutes are over.
So now I'm brushing while talking, but either way it's 2 minutes. So what you do is from one side, just brush, follow a sequence. It's not follow a sequence because you don't want to miss any tooth, yeah? So just follow a sequence. It's like you're brushing 2 or 3 teeth at a go. You finish with the outer surfaces. Go to the inner surface of your upper teeth.
Okay.
The same way. Point the brush towards the gum, 45 degrees, circular motions, gentle circular motions until this other side. That's 1 minute. Go to the lower teeth. The same thing. Circular motions gently, pointing the brush towards the gum a little bit, and then just circular motions gently towards till this other side. That's maybe 1 and 20 seconds. The inner surface is the same. Now brush the chewing surfaces. The chewing surfaces, you can just brush the front and back motions. Front and back, up, front and back, and then you brush your tongue. I don't know if
and
that's
don't forget the tongue.
You brush the who?
Imagine 1 minute is not over since we started counting.
We were talking about it, we were not actually doing it.
Can you imagine if we were doing it?
Then why am I brushing my tongue?
CT. So because
it's a surface in the mouth.
It's not a tooth. A tongue is not a tooth.
So are you telling me that dentists are tongue specialists?
Yeah, the mouth specialists. It's actually the whole mouth. Yeah.
The tongue is part of your mouth.
Yes.
In fact, the tongue is what distributes everything. Every food it distributes.
How about the palate, the upper part of the mouth?
The upper, you don't need to brush that.
You don't brush that.
No, it's a smooth surface.
The mucosa is very smooth, so you don't need to. Nothing can get
not
stuck.
As much. The tongue is not actually smooth, so there are spaces where food can actually get lodged. So that's why we also recommend brushing that.
Okay. How far back into the tongue?
Well, you don't need to make yourself gag. Let me say that.
As
far as you can comfortably go. Okay. Because everything is a balance. Like Joab mentioned as well. If you go too far, you'll also start causing problems, like extreme friction, overdoing it as well. Because some people tend to, you're so concerned about is my mouth smelling? Am I clean? So now you're overdoing it. Yeah. You're brushing maybe 4 or 5 times a day. So you're now going to end up noticing that your gums are actually receding because gums are very delicate. So too much friction, they'll respond, they'll reduce. So
2
it's a
minutes
balance.
are over.
So there we go. 2 minutes are out, yeah.
It's a long time.
I usually tell my patients, pick a song you like that is 2 minutes and then just brush while that song is playing.
Okay. Now, what you just described, that will prevent all these things you said may come my way by way of my having teeth.
Not on its own, there are other things you need to be careful about as well. So diet is a big thing. We all know, avoid sugar, the simple sugars especially, because simple sugar, the more refined something is, the easier it is for the bacteria in your mouth to eat it and produce the acid that my colleague was talking about. So extremely refined foods. And most doctors at this point in time will advise you against it. Whole foods are better for digestion, for everything. So the more refined something is, the more likely it is to cause trouble for you. So extremely sugary foods, extremely sticky foods, things that will stick and be hard to dislodge. And there's also the aspect of constant snacking, because every time you eat, you're introducing something for the bacteria to work on. So that's also something to be careful about.
This bacteria, it has uses.
It does. It's normal flora. It is.
Flora. Normal.
It is. So there's normal flora, but then now within that same population, there are certain strains of bacteria that are associated more with gum disease and with decay. So you can't get rid of it entirely.
So essentially, our mouth is an ecosystem where these things flourish.
100%. So you have to do the best you can to provide making it too comfortable for the bacteria that's there. Because you won't take antibiotics. There's nothing you can do to get rid of it entirely, and you're not supposed to. Again, even digestion. You have your normal flora. That's why people are not talking about probiotics and fermented foods and things like that. But you don't want to make it too easy for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these Western habits like kissing should be avoided.
I'm not saying that. No one is saying that.
Why? Because you're kissing honey.
What I would suggest is be careful about the new bacteria that you're introducing to your mouth. So observe your person, the person that you're choosing.
So maybe you balance
yeah, you have to do some vetting exercises.
It's important.
Shake hands.
Wow.
Toothpaste.
Yes.
Why is it important?
Toothpaste is important. Okay, now this is going to be a bit controversial.
Yes.
All right. So toothpaste is important. I'm not saying don't use toothpaste. But eventually this conversation sometimes go to mswak. Our before mswak is the chewing stick.
Yes,
the chewing stick essentially. Yeah. So the idea with the chewing stick is the friction to actually dislodge the foods, and it has been shown to be very effective in populations with a less refined diet. So again, talking about things that are extremely refined. So if you don't have very many sugars and someone is just there with a chewing stick, it is actually shown that it is good enough. The friction, it's technique, as my colleague was saying as well. So the friction, you've covered all the surfaces, you've dislodged all the food. Well and good, your mouth is clean. So toothpaste comes in because there are more components that now help us work towards a cleaner mouth. So there's fluoride in most toothpastes, and there will be cleaning agents in most toothpastes. Sorry. So it's an additive, let's say. But, because people always ask, which is the best one? And a lot of the Western advertisements will say 9 out of 10 dentists agree.
Yes.
10 out of 10 dentists agree that you should brush your teeth. Use what is comfortable for you. If this brand is not working for you, then you're not going to use it because it doesn't work for you.
Okay.
So use what works for you best. If this is the one you like, as long as you're using it properly, go ahead. Then
there are those who tell you that, brush with toothpaste and then mouthwash.
Mouthwash has its place because he also mentioned flossing. So there's the idea about cleaning in between the teeth. The surfaces he talked about did not capture the surfaces which meet, where the teeth meet each other, but there are spaces there where food can get stuck as well. So there's flossing to disrupt the food that is stuck there. There are interdental brushes, which is like a very, very small, like a bottle cleaner brush that goes into the spaces. And mouthwash also does that because it's something that you rinse, water can go everywhere. There's also the water flossing, same idea. They're all aimed towards dislodging food that gets stuck within. Yeah.
Okay. When do you introduce toothpaste for children?
All right.
When can you? Because before that, I remember their mothers would use a piece of cotton wool in salted water.
Yes.
To clean the cavities. What would you cavity in this sense? I mean the opening,
space.
not
the oral cavity.
Yes. So when would you now say it's the best time to do that?
All right, so hygiene actually starts from the very beginning, before the teeth even come out. We try and encourage our mothers, when they're still just the gum pads, like you're talking about actually, it's a cotton wool or a clean cloth, salty water, just rub the surface gently, and that's it, you've done that. Once the teeth start coming out, again, still the cotton wool, just going over the surface with cotton wool and salt water is fine. Once the child is old enough to start holding a brush, you do it with them. At that point in time, maybe about, let's say, a year and a half, because it depends on what is available to you. Let me say that. Once there are teeth in the mouth.
Okay.
So there are toothbrushes that are targeted even at very small babies, but those will not always be available to everyone, and they're usually extremely costly. So if you don't have it, again, don't be fixated so much on the tools that are there.
Okay.
So use what is available to you. That's what I'd say. But if you are introducing toothpaste, make sure, for this particular one, I will say, make sure the toothpaste is targeted to that particular age group. Because kids will swallow. Yes. So it's formulated to be safe enough to swallow. Yes.
But an adult, the concept of
And of
spitting
spitting.
it out.
Yes, exactly. And then again, kids' toothpaste are usually flavored.
Yeah.
So it's sweet. The first thing they'll do is swallow a bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the
so,
activity of getting them to do it is what is important at that
yes,
point.
yes.
Okay. I heard somebody say the other day that actually maybe it was many months ago, her son had cavities. And she said, well, you know what, that's fine. I'm not going to go to the dentist to have them filled because those teeth are going to fall out anyway at some point. So, we are fine. We're just going to keep brushing. They're going to shake and fall out. Is that dangerous?
That's so dangerous. Like, I'm actually feeling pain when you're saying that because I've seen so many people with that same situation where they'll talk about, but sizina toka. So, okay, fine. Yes, the milk teeth are going to come out at a particular point in time. But what a lot of people don't realize is that, teeth come out at different times. So the first teeth that start getting lost is the front teeth, about age 4, age 5. So those ones will come out, the other ones will grow. But the back teeth are kept for much, much longer than that, up to about age, let's say 8, 9, 10, maybe even 11, maybe even 12. And they have a purpose in the mouth. Number one, there's chewing, obviously. So if your child can't chew properly because of the cavities, they literally can't chew. It is painful for them to chew. Imagine if every time you are eating, you're feeling pain. Like, why are you letting your child go through that? Yeah. Fine, they will shake and they will come out. But like that, the quality of life for your child, really, yes.
Even affects the nutrition.
At the beginning. So failure to thrive is there. And then also, the presence of the milk teeth guides the growth of the bone. The bone of the jaw grows with the tooth. If this tooth has been lost so early, that particular point, that small segment is not going to grow the way it is. And a 4-year-old jaw is not the same as a 9-year-old jaw. Okay. So in order for the jaw to expand, to create enough room for the permanent teeth to come out, that milk tooth has to have been there. Right. So that is such a common thing. And on the way I'm talking, really, like I genuinely feel so bad when parents say that. And you're setting your child up for problems for life. You see, the same way when we came in, you say, I don't smile in front of a dentist. You have that association. And you're setting your child up for a painful life with the dentist. Like, ideally, we want it to be, you come in once or twice a year, we do your checkup. Your teeth are very clean. Is there anything you want to do in terms of, do you want to brighten them? Now we are doing the good stuff, the cosmetic stuff. We're all comfortable. But if every time you're coming in, I'm in pain, like it's not good. Even us, we don't enjoy inflicting pain on. Contrary to popular belief, we don't get into this because we are sadists. We do actually want to help people.
Let's take a break. 27 minutes to 10. Our guests this morning are dentists. Dr. Dorothy Keegan is a general dentist. She makes her money by coming and sorting you out when you have problems and also advising you on what to do. But Dr. Joab Otieno is the one who makes money by just talking to you and telling you, by the way, fanya hivi. He is a dental hygienist. We are talking about taking care of our dental health and just taking care of our teeth and why it's important to do that. This is our Health Friday conversation. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start
Experience the vibrant pulse of Africa at Festac Africa Festival 2024 in Kisumu. Join us for a week-long celebration of culture, music, fashion, and more from May 20th to 26th. Dive into sustainable growth with food, arts, education, and youth empowerment. Don't miss Africa's premier Pan-African and global cultural exchange program. Get your tickets now. 1 day for 500 Kenya shillings or the full week for 2,000 Kenya shillings. Kisumu County welcomes the world to be part of Africa's forward movement. Act fast and secure your spot in this unforgettable journey. To register, just go to www.festacafrica.org. Lights. Digger. Action. Do you have the passion, the interest to tell a story to the world in your own style? Well, we're ready to take you in and help you grow your talents in the media industry. The Standard Group, in partnership with Talanta Institute, is offering a media training and incubation program courtesy of Standard Talanta Academy, where we nurture and guide industry talents on an array of topics from writing, reporting, media law and ethics, investigative journalism, and research to the Kenya Copyright Board, Kenya Film Commission, and the Kenya Films and Classification Board legal frameworks. To apply to the Standard Talanta Academy for our upcoming May intake, visit www.talanta.ac.ke or call 0724 468 468. The Standard Talanta Academy.
some very nice, mature music.
They really take me back to my days, and I can just feel get energy.
In Nairobi, actually mostly cloud overcast at 17. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 16. 14 will be the low in a partly sunny Nakuru, going to highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 24 and a cloudy Nyeri at 19. It's sunny at 20 in Eldoret with highs of 24 and lows of 13. We're looking to a cloudy Mombasa at 27 and a cloudy Malindi at 27 as well. It's sunny at 25 in Kisumu and sunny at 24 in Kakamega. Mostly cloudy at 23 in Kampala and into a cloudy Dar es Salaam at 26. We'll see highs of 31. Johannesburg is sunny at 19 and into Mogadishu 31 and sunny conditions. Addis Ababa is sunny at 20 while Lagos at 29 is partly sunny. It's mostly cloudy at 25 in Kinshasa. We're looking into a rainy Beijing Friday afternoon, and Paris at 13 is sunny this morning. It's partly sunny, warming up in London at 15, and we're looking into a rainy New York as well. Thursday night coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 12 and lows of 8.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, 23 minutes to 10. Our conversation continues with our dentists, Dr. Dorothy Kigen and Dr. Joab Otieno. Many questions on our YouTube channel. Please keep them coming. How do you whiten your teeth? Is there any effect? You'll talk about that. How do you clean the inner side of your teeth? King Dave is asking, is there any danger to using the Masai toothbrush stick? No, Bana. That is, in fact, what Dr. Dorothy said. In fact, if you can get it, talk to me. I'll get you several. I'm going to Kimana this weekend. About whitening teeth.
All right, so whitening teeth, you'd have to start with what is the cause, right? Because when you're talking about I want my teeth to be white, that means there's a discoloration. So first you have to figure out the discoloration itself, and then I'll know what to do about it, right? So common discolorations, there can be external stains, things that come from coffee, too much tea, red wine, highly pigmented foods. That can be taken care of by cleaning. Technical term is scaling. My colleague can speak more about that because that's now his area, kabisa. Then now, if there is no external stain, then now you look at the teeth itself. So at the moment in our population, the thing that's causing most discoloration is fluorosis, which is the browning of the teeth due to the water intake, maji ya chumvi, right?
Yeah.
Everyone is familiar from it. Back in the 90s, we knew it was in Nakuru, Labda Coast, but it's coming to Nairobi a lot because of all the boreholes that are being sunk all over. So everyone's water is salty. We're not so sure about the quality of it. So if a child's water intake, drinking, and the water that's being used to cook, let me emphasize that because that's something a lot of people miss.
Yeah,
even the water
say,
that's used to cook.
when you're cooking, you've boiled the water.
Exactly.
so
So that's also a thing.
Right.
So if that water is extremely salty, the fluoride displaces the calcium while the teeth are being formed, and they come out with that brown staining.
So let me understand, because I'm speaking personal experience here. So dentists told me that with one child to the next child, first child didn't have a problem, she was fine. Second child, then he could start to see the browning because I was in an area where the water was different. But the water that we drink is different from water that comes out of the tap. It's filtered differently. And so he said, you know what? The water that's being used to cook matters. The water that you used to wash your vegetables, wash your fruits, whatever matters. And so he said, change that as well. So we used a different kind of water to cook as well. And we could see that the browning.
So you purify all the water that's being used.
All water that you drink, even water to brush the teeth with, all of this.
Because you'll swallow a little bit of it probably.
Right. So I actually saw that it reduced significantly. And then he said, what you do is that when he's 12, bring him and then we can do a whitening.
Yes.
But then maybe I should have asked then. For somebody who asked questions, I don't know why I didn't ask him then. Anyway.
What's the question?
Why do we have to wait until he's 12?
All right. Okay, so veneers is essentially what we talk about, right? So ideally, there's permanent... Okay, we'll go into a bit of the technicalities here, right? So there are different materials that are used to do veneers. For someone who's actually under 18, the material that we would use over to cover the tooth is the same material that we use to do the normal white fillings, right? So we would basically, we call it masking. That's like the colloquial term amongst us. So you're essentially gently drilling off about 1 millimeter of the tooth. It's painless. You don't even need to do it under the local anesthetic. If depending on your child's tolerance, let me say, which again, everyone is different. It's not that your child is being a bad person.
Right.
If they can't handle it, that's fine, we'll deal with it. So usually we used to say 12, but now I've done it on people who are younger as well, up to about 8 or 9, because if the brown is really bad, then now, even if it's just not the most ideal, you just drill off that brown part and put the white filling. So you can actually do it earlier, but we try and hold off a little bit, because every time you've drilled a tooth, everything comes with cost and benefit. Like, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis, right? Every time you drill a tooth, there's a risk, no matter what. It may be a very small risk, but there is a risk. There's a risk of sensitivity, there's a risk of developing decay in that area, provided, let's say the maintenance is not so good. So every time you do it, you'll have to come back and do it again. And again, the white material that we use under age 18 tends to pick up stains as well. So you do it, each case is different, right? If it's not so bad, if it's not affecting your child, they can talk, they can laugh, they're fine, then you do want to hold off as long as you can.
But it's more of a social issue, because, kids are
very much is, exactly. So if you notice now, when your child is talking to you, they're not laughing in photos anymore, they're covering their mouth. I mean, in that case, it's justified, because now it's affecting them, self-esteem.
Plus, at the same time, at 12, when they're still younger, the teeth are also growing. So you can do a masking on a tooth that is still small, and then after a few years, it becomes big.
More of it has
more of it has grown with the tooth, and then leaves another space of maybe a discolored tooth.
What is this process of whitening teeth? Are you removing something from the tooth, or are you putting something on the tooth?
So that's why I started at the point of you have to look at the cause. So if it's fluorosis, you cover it essentially, because no amount of bleaching, which is where I'm going to go to next, will change that if it is severe fluorosis. So
what do you put on it?
No, there's a material that we use. The white filling material is what we use. For someone who's over 18, growth and development of the jaw is complete, then we do ceramics. Those ones are the best. They're very color stable. You do it once, as long as there's no trauma, there's no recurrent decay. That's very color stable. It's the best.
Okay.
But because you don't want to wait until 18 with your brown teeth, you do something before. There is also bleaching. If the issue is just the yellowing of the teeth, which is something that occurs naturally over time, then there are materials that we apply to gradually brighten the color of the tooth. So there are different kinds. You can do one session in the office, you can do at-home kits. They are safe, but you really have to do a proper workup first. Like, you have to do a full examination, because if you have any gum disease, any inflammation, any decay anywhere, it is a strong chemical, you will have bad side effects. But if everything is okay, then it's very safe. So we usually encourage people, please go to a dentist first, do a full checkup. There are those advertisements, I don't know if they're still in matatus, but we used to see them, utoto sticker, we whiten brown teeth. Please be careful about who you're going to.
Nice photo.
And then it might be AI at this point in time, please be careful about who you're going to.
And the products they're using, because this product, what happens, the products are made to suck or maybe to absorb the stain, the yellow color, and then leaves the tooth white.
Okay, there are quite a number of questions here, and some of the ones that are coming up, first of all, maybe one for you, Doc. Should you, what's the benefits of using charcoal to clean teeth? Not necessarily the one in the thing, but there's even charcoal toothpaste now. What's the benefit of that, and does it work?
So charcoal toothpaste are good. They absorb and they tend to make teeth whiter if you use them for a very long time. But then that is usually it's an effect, because people start using charcoal, and at the same time it's very abrasive. Now it harms the teeth in the long run. So it's important, even if they want to use the charcoal toothpaste, they should not use too much of it. Plus, before they use that, I think it's recommended they come to the dentist. They should be seen first, to see which products would want or what they want to achieve at the end. But most of these products, some of them they're not safe for sure, because at the end of the day, they try to whiten their teeth, and at the same time, the teeth, instead of turning white, they turn yellow, because they end up scrapping the whole enamel. And the enamel, the outer part is the white part. So if the white part is scrapped off by the action of brushing and using very abrasive toothpastes, at the end of the day, the white part wears off, leaves the tooth yellow.
Wow.
In the long run.
Okay.
The thing with charcoal also, because again, there have been studies to notice that there is an effect. It's the carbon. You know how carbon is used in filters as well, so it absorbs impurities. So that's why there is actually an effect in it. But the issue is that, like, if you're just doing actual charcoal, it's not calibrated, you don't know the amounts, it can be too abrasive, as my colleague is saying.
Okay.
And the ones that are in toothpaste will be it'll have a slight effect, but not as much as a professional bleaching. Let me also just say that, because there's a limit to what can safely be sold over the counter and in supermarkets.
Okay.
So if you really want a clear effect, then go to a professional.
Okay. There's a pain radiating from my zygomatic bone.
That would be like here.
All the way to the temporal bone after extracting my tooth. Is it normal or a complication?
How long ago was it? Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can
contend.
Yeah. Okay, 5 months.
Because that's the first question. How long ago? Okay. So pain after an extraction, let's look at it that way, right? And I would also like to emphasize, this is not a substitute for an actual one-on-one with a dentist. This is just a general impression, right? So pain after an extraction could be any number of causes. So that's why I asked first, how long ago was it? Because if it's still part of the normal healing within a certain range of time, it's acceptable. But if it is extremely severe, there's a possibility that there was an infection, so you need to go and get that checked out. There is also, again, a possibility of nerve damage. Not likely with the upper, if I may say. That's a bit more common for the lower, and it's still very uncommon. There's a possibility there was an issue with the sinus, if you're talking about the upper, during the process of the extraction, if it was very rough.
Wow.
If it was very rough, there is a possibility. So all these things are possibilities. I would say that pain in itself is not normal. Remember when we started at the very beginning, pain is a symptom. So if you are feeling pain, you're within your rights to go back to the people who did it and say, okay, by then I'm still in pain. What's going on? Okay. Don't sit with pain. Let me just say that.
What would be the cause of impacted teeth? Is that natural?
All right, yes. So what an impacted tooth is, in case someone doesn't know, it's a tooth that hasn't erupted completely, either partially stuck in the bone or fully stuck in the bone. Many different causes, not fully understood. Most commonly, the assumption is that it's due to a discrepancy between the size of the teeth and the size of the jaw. The jaw did not reach its full potential of development. Again, coming back to our refined foods, so whole foods, miwa, things that need a lot of chewing, things that need proper chewing, your muscles work. So if you're eating a very good diet, apples, hard foods, carrots, things that need to be chewed, your muscles working encourage the jaw development to reach its full potential. A lot of people in the modern situation are not reaching full potential of your jaws.
Okay, I have impacted teeth.
Okay.
I have impacted teeth. Dentist said I have to remove all 4 of them.
Yes.
I removed the first one. It was horrible.
Bad experience.
This is why when Eric said
we're doing dentist means what?
They had to cut into the bone.
So the tooth is inside the jaw.
Yeah, if it's half in. It
so
didn't fully
removing it, what are we doing? Are we cutting the jaw?
They have to cut
just that portion.
This
alone.
seems more painful.
It sounds so bad. Yeah.
She says when she says just cut, I am here.
I'm sorry.
I'm here. I'm telling you that it was not just.
I know.
So then they said remove
so
the
bad.
I have not gone to remove the other ones, but then now this one here is growing down.
Yes, that does happen.
Right. So can you? But if you're saying, because I didn't have problems chewing carrots, apples, anything like that, it's fine. The only thing that happened is that it was a closed off part, so I got a cavity there because of the impaction, and that's how you
clean it properly.
The teeth work.
Yeah, the others.
Nothing could get in there, so that's why they had to remove it.
Yeah.
So can you then operate with impacted teeth without having them removed? Must you have them removed?
So opinions on this change. So there's some people, you can get away with it if you can clean it, is the thing. Not many people are meticulous enough with the cleaning. Maybe not necessarily through your fault. If it's just stuck that badly, like the point at which it's contacting the next tooth is below the gum line, you'll never be able to clean it. Food will be getting there, but you can't clean it. So in such a case, yes. You again, cost-benefit analysis. It's posing more of a risk to the other teeth in your mouth than it is by remaining. If it's partially come out, and you're able to clean it, it's not causing any other issues, you're not at a high risk of developing decay, then you can. But I would really, again, emphasize, you need to do annual checkups. Because for impacted teeth, the problem starts really quietly until the day it explodes. Because it doesn't come with the initial warning signs of sensitivity that the other teeth have. It just comes with one day you can't sleep. Like your mouth has just exploded. So frequent checkups. So even you, as you're being afraid of God, I'd suggest you go back. Just get the x-rays done. Just see what's going on.
I've seen them.
When was the last time?
Keep going.
6 months ago, actually.
So you do another one. Yeah. X-rays are good for 6 months, according to us, because the picture changes.
Yeah.
You know, the condition in your mouth right now is not the condition it was 6 months ago.
Okay. So another question here. every time you have a problem with your tooth, should you actually have them? How safe is it, and how many teeth can you remove and still remain? Because somebody says a cavity at an older age, remove it. How many should you remove and still remain?
I think it's important. It's important.
Remain a human.
It's very, very important to preserve your natural teeth. Usually, back then, dentists were daktari okung'oa meno. It was like you go with pain, they just extract the tooth. So that was the idea back then. But nowadays, there are ways to save your teeth. There are ways to even restore the teeth that maybe that are decayed or painful, yeah? So that's why it's important to get checkups as early as possible. Once you start feeling even before you feel the pain, when you're going for these checkups, of course, it's identified early. But once the pain is there, don't remove the tooth first. Go seek an opinion. Of course, you can do fillings, you can do root canals nowadays, and there are even other ways to save the teeth, yeah.
Okay. There's a question here. Sorry, there are many.
Yep.
She's asked this question, I think she's asked a couple of times, we're not able to make the connection. What's the correlation between painful gums when on your period or when pregnant?
All right, okay. So I'll start with the pregnant one because that one has actually been documented. There's pregnancy gingivitis. The female reproductive system is very interesting. Like a lot of things go on, and it's not fully studied. Let me also point that out. But there has been an established correlation between a higher risk of gingivitis and gum disease during pregnancy for some people. And you will hear a lot of people say about with every child I lost a tooth.
Yeah.
That's a very common, old wives' tale, but the old wives knew what they were talking about. So when someone is pregnant, we do still recommend. Hey, boss, exactly. And you know which tooth it was. So the theories are your body's at a for pregnancy. The theory is that your body, there's generally more inflammation going on because your body is trying to accommodate a whole other different organism. So everything is just all over, and an increased loss of calcium. Also, again, habits during pregnancy. If you're someone who needs to keep snacking, so your hygiene will drop a little bit. There's also hyperemesis, which is people with really bad morning sickness. If you're throwing up all the time, that's a lot of acid on your teeth. So yes, so that's something that's known. So you can actually see the dentist while you're pregnant. Most people think you can't, but you can actually. Some things are quite safe to do. Okay. So don't think you have to sit on it until afterwards. You don't want to get to a situation where things are really, really bad.
Can you do something about it?
At the time.
If someone comes to you, they're pregnant, and they have all these issues
you can have a filling done, you can even have a removal done, to be honest.
Cleaning.
You can do an initial part of a root canal, you can do cleaning. Most of the things are very safe to do. We'll just take those extra precautions, find out how is your pregnancy going, do you have any other issues, hypertension, all those things that are there. But it is actually safe.
Something here we need to talk about, cost.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's actually a very valid point.
Meno ni yako.
Na naitoa. And then nalipa yeye. Toa meno yangu.
Yeah, that's actually a barrier to treatment for a lot of our
Why
people.
Should it be a barrier?
It should not be, to be honest. Now, we're going to go into a lot of almost political things right now because healthcare as a whole in the country...
You don't like politics?
No, that's why I got into science. I know what I'm doing. It's studyable. We are not trying to convince anyone of anything. So healthcare as a whole in this country is not in the best condition at the moment. And I said I don't want to go into the politics of it. But speaking about what I know, so our costs are likely to actually continue rising, unfortunately, because of the materials that we use. None of these materials are made in the country. They're all things that have to come in, and now bringing things into the country is not cheap. Things that were medical, which could come in without certain kinds of duty, things are changing in that particular aspect, so that is unfortunate. But, I'm not supposed to do this, but... So there are cheaper options, right? But I would still, suggest... Okay, one thing I usually talk about for a lot of my clients, the dental school, actually, at University of Nairobi is a very good resource because they do have, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the costs are slightly lower. Subsidized, thank you. So you will do a bit longer in terms of it'll take a bit longer, and people are always a bit iffy about, but it's teaching wanafunzi hawajui. And if I may say, that's also the problem with the recent interns issue. People want to say only wanafunzi hawajui, but it's part of the training, and no one is working on their own unsupervised. That is still very valuable. That's still very important. So the cost is not likely to come down, but I would say, we usually tell people, look at it as an investment. There was that question about how many teeth are safe to lose. There's actually, one of the lecturers is doing a 70-28 campaign, where the idea is you get to 70 with 28 teeth, meaning the 4 you lost were the wisdom teeth. So any tooth that is functional in your mouth that you lose is a loss. You cannot chew the same way you used to chew. Your balance is not the way it used to be. You can end up with joint pains. So your teeth are very important. It's an investment, actually.
Does the Aga Khan University have a dental school?
No, it doesn't. We do want to start one, though. It started at university for medical school. We are writing our own proposals on what we can do about that.
And we have a dental hygiene school.
Yes,
so we have a dental
that's coming up.
Why is it, therefore, then, that the preventative aspects of dentistry are not talked about louder, emphasized more, talked about during health talks, because health facilities do have health talks. The focus, again, usually is mothers who tend to have it, my expectant mothers. But it's something, because even when we look at our whole approach to healthcare, the preventative aspect takes a back seat.
It really does. It really does.
And actually, even when we see it from the toothpaste companies. They're the ones that are, just
that's marketing. That's a marketing
they're doing it for marketing.
So they're doing a good job for sure. We try to raise awareness. It's just the lack of information. The lack of information to people, because of the previous generations who passed these informations to us, they were just like, and you go to a dentist when you get pain. But then the preventive aspect of people not waiting for that pain has not been there. So we are just trying to change the narrative. That's why we usually try to go to schools, we're educating them, we go to functions, we go to events, as Aga Khan, of course. We just try to maybe raise a generation that is aware of all these things.
Have you spoken to the Kenya KICD, Institute of Curriculum Development? Why am I saying this? Some of these things are things which, if they are taught, and then as when you come in as health talk, you augment what is there, children will take this information seriously and they will apply it. So you end up having an entire generation
that has been taught.
Yes, and who's...
So I remember when I was in primary school, I think there were guys from Colgate who came to our school back then in the 2000s, and they taught us how to brush only, But then growing up, I realized that these people, I don't know who, like the way they were teaching people to brush, I think that was what was relevant at that time. But then things are changing right now. So I think they need professionals who are able to educate the masses, who are able to do all these things. And getting that, of course, will take some time.
That's why I mentioned the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development.
Like that. That's a very
so
good.
I think that it's exactly included in the curriculum.
At the very beginning.
You have a Kenya Dental Association.
Yeah, there is this KDA.
Right?
KDA. It does a good job, for sure.
With outreach and things like that. But again,
once again, it will be limited.
Yes, because we're few. Also, that's also an issue.
See,
the dental population.
The ratio
all over the country.
Yeah, the association. Then what I'm bringing the association for is it can lobby KICD as the dental association
for that.
And say there's importance to have a conversation with the Ministry of Education, then at KICD. In the curriculum review, can we add some of these health factors, so you can have elements of dentistry, elements of have all those things, nutrition, everything, so kids grow up knowing this.
They're a listening group of people. They listen.
Yeah, very much so. A lot of this is going to be very middle class, but a lot of my the parents who come to see me talk about the videos on YouTube and things. The songs about brushing. That's how they get their kids to brush. So kids they absorb. Children are sponges. So if that's actually a really good idea. If they're taught at that point in time and it's retained. So, and also this forum that you guys have as well, I must commend you for that, because this is also your outreach right now is probably a lot more than the people that I meet. So I commend you very much for that.
For sure.
This is a really good platform, because the people I'm talking to right now, usually I have my one-on-one with my practice, and you tell someone, each one teach one. So you say, okay, in your estate with your family, tell them this about the water. But this is such a big forum; it's much better than nothing.
You said each one or each one?
Each one teach one.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. for joining us. We've had a Health Friday conversation, very enlightening, but you guys need to come back because we've just begun and there are very many questions.
There's so much. It's very, very wide.
We will do this.
Please invite us back again.
Dr. Dorothy Keegan is a general dentist and a general hygienist. Dr. Joab Otieno, they've been our guests. Have a lovely weekend. Go plant a tree. Go visit somebody who has lost a loved one or who's marooned somewhere or who's just basically been affected by the floods. Have a good weekend. See you on Monday.
The 90s have never sounded so good.
Thank God.